welcome to Creative Blog. We're your hosts, VEE
and SEAN. We interview people in the creative industries about their life, work, and hobbies while we doodle jam.
We asked people on our social medias if they had specific topics they wanted us to discuss, as well as some drawing prompts.
Today we have with us SAM GRINBERG. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is really exciting.
Thanks for having me. I am really excited.
Comics, animation, how can these things possibly relate? When did you first realize there was a connection in between doing comics and working in animation?
Oh, wow. The connection, I think probably like 8 years old, because I wanted to animate stuff, but when I was so young, I had no idea how. So I was like, wait, I can make a comic. So I started to staple paper comics together, and then I just went down that path because it was more satisfying to create something and you have it finished right then and there, as opposed to what the little I learned about at such a young age would be, oh man, this would take a long time, especially like, that would have been figuring that out on paper at that point.
True. So it was a more like reasonable way for you to replicate what you were seeing on TV. I mean, because you can't animate when you're an 8-year-old, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Because I wanted to. I mean, I loved animation before comics, but yeah, it really was like just being practical and being like, okay, I want to draw cartoons, but the best way to do that is to make a comic book. And then I stuck with that because it just became more and more satisfying. And then I just, as time went on, started to forget that I wanted to animate anything.
That's so funny. I do feel like, I relate to that a lot. I feel like drawing a comic is the best because it's so fast and you can like do the story and the art like super fast compared to animating.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it's like with animating, you start a rough and then come back to the rough, and you're not really looking at something finished for days or weeks or whatever, but you can be done pretty quickly with a drawing in a comic, and you're like, it's there, it's finished, and I'm happy with it.
What was your first comic about? Can you remember what it was?
Yeah, it's funny. Ironically, so I'm not into superheroes at all. Like I never read any superhero comics, but I was drawing like goofy superhero comics. I mean, it was more like, I say superhero, but it's more like if SpongeBob was a superhero, if that makes sense, because I watched so much Nickelodeon, and I don't know why. It's just I was really into drawing that, and I made probably, I don't know, 100 small stapled paper comics from, I don't know, age 8 to 14 or something like that.
Okay, that's really cool because I love that you stapled. It's really funny. Somebody recently asked me, how do I make a comic that I can easily share with people in a paper form? So you were doing that at a young age. Tell us how, because, okay, if you just take a sheet of paper, fold it in half and staple it in the middle, it's hard because you don't have the long stapler. So how were you doing it as a kid?
Oh yeah, well no, I think I would take 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and fold that in half. So that was easy to staple it because it would be half the size. It wouldn't be like a full size comic. So at that point it was pretty doable. And maybe I would have to bend the page a little bit, but not enough. I mean, these were like 10-page comics, not like really, 22 page or whatever the standard is. So because of that, I think it was pretty doable that it would never really be noticeable. I mean, no one else was really reading these except my friends and family anyway, so it was okay.
I remember when I was a little kid, around that age, I didn't make comics, but I made like a children's book with like very few words.
Yeah.
But I kept making the same story pretty much over and over again. I was really fixated on the life cycle of different animals. So at the beginning of the story would be that they were babies, and then they find a mate, and then they escape danger in some way, and then they have babies, and then the cycle continues, and that's the end. But I made one that was about a salamander, and I submitted it to I won some sort of like little baby kid award for submitting it to Reading Rainbow.
Oh my God. Wait, how old are you?
I was like 8, 10, like something
Okay.
like a little kid, and I submitted it to Zoom and I didn't win, but they sent me a shirt that was the wrong
Oh
size.
my God. So you have a Zoom shirt. Did you keep it?
No, no.
Oh,
I guess I didn't see the. I was mad that they didn't know I was a chubby little kid. So
that's
probably,
Oh,
I
oh,
probably got mad. But I remade that same story with like 3 other animals, and it was the exact same story, but I would illustrate it over and over again.
huh. Wow. I feel
that
like that's what you do at that age, right? It's like you don't even realize that you want. I mean, well, I guess I should ask you, were you doing it over and over again because you kept wanting to tweak it, or was it literally the same story?
No, no, no. It was the same story, but a different animal each time. And
Right,
I
right, right,
thought I
right.
was writing a different story
I
because
see.
I was like the next one was like praying mantis
Oh,
or something.
that's
So
so
that's a very
funny.
educational comic series.
I didn't even mean to be educational. I guess that was just the stuff I like was.
Just
I
what
guess
you
I
were
was watching
interested
a
in.
lot of nature documentaries or something. I
Or
don't know.
like you saw Bambi and you were like, yes.
But that's cool that you thought about doing comics and first because to me that feels cool. That feels like a a cooler thing to do. Like oh, you were already making zines when you were 8. Like get
Oh,
out of
that's funny.
here.
Well, I don't know. It's so funny because I wasn't thinking about it that way. It was just I loved drawing them and like desperately wanted to tell stories about whatever they were. I mean, like I said, the time they were goofy superhero stories. I did some other things. Like when I was a little older, I did one that was like about like, still in the imagine still a style that's very SpongeBob-esque, but more about like vampires and demons and stuff. And that was more when I was like
Nice.
13, but yeah, I don't know. It was just like I really wanted to I imagined it animating, even though it was a comic. Because the only comics I really read at that age were not, they were like, like Peanuts and stuff like that. So I wasn't
Hmm.
even
Yeah.
reading like actual comics that I was maybe, kind of, again, no superhero comics, even though I was drawing a superhero comic. I was just like imagining it
Hmm.
being a show,
That's
oddly
so
enough.
cool. Yeah, you said you were reading Peanuts and like I guess like Sunday Funnies at like that age. Did you ever like read manga? I asked because I feel like manga when you read manga, it really feels like
Hmm.
watching a show. The kind of shots that they use and stuff like
Actually,
paneling.
I never have. I
Wow.
still haven't. Like I've never, I don't know why. It was not something that influenced me. Like I even remember being in second, and this isn't quite manga, of course, but
Hmm.
even in second grade, like that's probably around the time. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. When Pokemon was really popular, and I was not into it. I hated that everyone was obsessed with it but me. Like I just wasn't, I don't know, I wasn't into the style. I liked weird, like again, whatever was on Nickelodeon, like Klasky Chupo, like ugly
Yeah.
but cute, like
Hmm.
Ariel monsters and Hey Arnold. I mean, that's not Klasky Chupo, Hey Arnold, but whatever was
Mm.
on
Yeah,
Hmm.
Nickelodeon, like I
Rugrats.
just love like strange, crude looking, I don't know, Western American I don't know. It didn't, for some reason, it never appealed to me, any of that stuff. And I'm sure there's great stories there. But the style is just something that I don't know. It's for whatever reason, it was not. Maybe it has to do again with like, I don't know if this is true, but like what our parents like is what we like. And that's not something that my parents ever really were into, but they were into like animation and cartoons, like, old Looney Tunes and Walt
Yeah.
Disney stuff and Nickelodeon, because I like Nickelodeon. So I don't know, just it was never around.
I just think it's so funny they said like, oh, like the taste of your parents like trickled down to you because I feel like I was very rebellious when I was just
Oh,
like,
okay.
no, I like. There's like a couple of things that happened when like my parents were like, what are you doing? When I read Johnny the Homicide
Oh,
Maniac.
yeah, that was a huge influence on me.
Yeah, my parents did not like that. They were like, what are you reading?
Yeah, it's so funny because I went to go buy that at the comic book store in the mall. It was the only store in the mall, and I was 13, and they wouldn't sell it to me because it said 18 and up. And oh no, you know what? I was younger than that. I was 11 when I discovered it, and I was just like crying in the store.
Oh no.
No, that's so
I wanted
funny.
it so bad, and they were just like, no, you got to be 18.
Wait, so how
So
old were you when you read it?
I must have got it no, no, I still got my grandparents went in and got it for me.
I
That's
mean, that's some
so
cool
funny.
grandparents. There's some
Yeah.
unorthodox grandparents.
I mean, they didn't know what it
Did they
was.
ask you what? Did they? I mean, did they read the cover and did they
No.
ask you what it was?
No, they
That's
had no
funny.
idea. They didn't know what it was. And it's I was probably 12 then. No, I don't know how old I was. I can't remember, but
Books have nice things in them. At least
yeah,
it's not
right.
TV, you know.
Yeah, like, oh, it's good. It's reading. It's reading. That's a real thing though. My dad was really kind of like, no, TV will rot your brain. Stop watching
Really?
TV. Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't say exactly that, but he was like very discouraging of like watching TV, and he would be like, yeah, comics are great. Just read comics instead. It's like reading or whatever.
But he wouldn't
What do you,
monitor the content of the comics.
Not really.
Okay, well that's good. There's always a loophole
Except
somewhere.
manga. Manga, he did not like me reading mangas, but I read it.
Mhm.
I read it anyway because it's like TV on paper, pretty much.
Okay.
what do you think about the stereotype that's going around that no one that works on The Simpsons likes anime?
That's not a real thing.
You confirmed it on this podcast. Do you know? Can you prove it? Can you
Oh my
prove
God,
it's
there's
not a
so
real
many
thing?
people that love anime on the show. That is like, yeah, I am the odd man out in life, I think, when I say that to people.
I do think we need to get like, so you're our first guest we've had on the pod who's worked on The Simpsons. That's really cool. And we're going to jump ahead in time. How did you land that gig?
So I went to undergrad for cartooning, which is just comics, and towards the
Mhm.
end of graduating, I realized, I wasn't quite prepared for college to end, and I didn't really know what I was going to do because in the back of my mind, I still wanted to work in animation or, have a show one day or something like that, or at least work on a show, even though the goal really is to like, have a show in my style or something. But I was like, oh my God, like I didn't realize that it's going to be real. It was very scary to graduate and not, just I was still commuting from home and I just, I wanted to do something in animation at that point because it seemed very hard to support myself with comics. So I
Mhm.
applied to UCLA for grad school for animation. And once I was there, one of the professors used to be a director there. So I asked him if I could get the internship information, and he was nice enough to hand it over to me after like me. He's a super nice guy, but I feel like I bugged him because I asked like I was like, do you have it? Do you have it? Do you have it? Just so excited to hear that he used to work there because like I'm such a massive Simpsons fan.
Mm.
And it totally is the show that inspired me to even pursue anything. So because of that, he finally gave it to me, and I couldn't be more grateful. And after that, I interned there for 2 semesters, and then after that, I was a production assistant, and then I was for about a year, and then a production coordinator for about a year.
Mhm.
Then I started freelancing for about a year, and then I was a full-time character designer since 2019 now.
Wow.
That almost seems like the trajectory of like what you hear about tattoo shops or something. They were like, you
Yeah.
gotta
That's
work,
funny. Like an
you know.
apprenticeship there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
What what did you do during the internship? Because I feel like those very elusive internships, like everybody's trying to get them. That's so awesome that you got yours, but we don't really know what happens during these. So can you tell us
No
a
one
little bit?
does.
Yeah, it's a mysterious
Yeah.
time.
I mean, it was great. It really was great. I mean, I've had some internships before then that have not been great. And this was the best. It was an incredible one because, I mean, yes, you aren't allowed to do any artwork. It's just a production internship, but they were so generous with letting me sit in on any meeting I wanted to. I mean, I could sit there and watch the storyboard pitches and
That's
the
awesome.
storyboard meetings. I could sit in on editorial meetings, like really whatever you wanted, they would figure it out for you. And other than that, you were doing kind of a lot of it's not busy work because it's all work that is important and vital to the show, but it's not, it's not exciting work. But I have to say, I was excited doing it because I love the show and I was so happy to be doing anything related to the show. So, at that
Mhm.
time, I was like scene folders because they still carried physical X sheets back and forth across the office. This isn't even
Yeah.
that long ago. They would have kept doing that if COVID didn't happen. But so, I was like
Wow.
filling out the scene folders and erasing on it, and then some other things I would be doing is just setting up crew meetings and just a lot of like production stuff that some you still do when you're a production assistant, but the only difference is when you're a production assistant, you can't really sit in on other meetings as much because you have a lot more responsibility. But
Mm.
it was very, very cool to just, it really is. It was kind of like school in a way, but fun.
I feel like people who work as a PA or an intern first are better people on productions. Like I feel like if you understand the
Yeah,
the more
sure.
entry level positions and what they go through and how hard they are and how long you have to the hours, like I feel like it gives you a good perspective. And I think a lot of people kind of just get in and they never see it from that side, and it's worth humbling yourself, I feel like.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, like, again, like I had a different perspective because like I did see other people come in and they were, they were like, oh, I don't want to do any production internship. I just want an art job or whatever. And I get that. I
Oof.
relate to
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
I was so just happy to be there that by being excited about every little part of the process, it definitely helped me when I became an artist on the show because I actually know how the whole system works now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. What would you say is the biggest difference between being a PA and a production coordinator? Can you tell us a little bit about like the two jobs and the difference
Yeah,
between
for
them?
sure. It was really different because when I was a production assistant, you're at least for my job, what I was doing, because I think it's a little more diversified now that they have more production assistants doing specific tasks under different departments. But when I
Mm.
was there was only essentially two PAs and two other PAs that were in departments that have been doing it for a long time. So when I was there, we did a little bit of everything. And you're kind of at the
Oh.
front desk and you're anything from answering calls to passing out paychecks to then literally like helping the storyboard by exporting the storyboard files and creating discs for going out to meetings at the lot or helping with crew lunches or doing things like breaking down the script and calling things out that can be sent to the for lip sync and things like that, audio. It was just like a little bit of
Yeah.
everything. And that's kind of when you're PA, at least on this show. I think some other shows too, you kind of just are called upon to do various tasks for every part of the production. But as a coordinator, you're just working in one department. At least I was. And I was a design coordinator. So
Mhm.
I'm just working with designers and directors. And designers are giving me or I'm breaking down the script, calling out every single thing that needs to be drawn, passing that out. I mean, it's the director's call, but helping the director pass that stuff out to the artists, and then the artists turn it into me, and I would log it in, and then I would send that over, and then they would have notes, and then I would, give that back to the director. And so you're just doing that. You're only working in design, and if you're a production coordinator, you're just handling the production side, which is the layout animation side of it. So it's more localized, I guess.
Were you
Mm.
working on The Simpsons while they were still doing things on paper?
No, that I think they stopped doing that like after the movie. So I didn't start until 2014, and that was
Oh, okay.
2007.
Because I know American Dad continued storyboarding on paper
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember talking to some people who worked on that show, probably around 2016 even, and
Oh, huh.
and I think parts of it at least were still done on paper. So I was just curious because
Sure.
on regular show it was all boarded on paper, and so and part of the PA or the intern or the coordinator's jobs were to scan lots of pages and help organize them.
Oh,
So I was curious
I see.
if you had any part in that.
Yeah, no, no, they were all digital at that point. I mean, there were physical, though. I think the X sheets might have been the last physical
Mm.
thing when I was there that needed to be dealt with.
Wow. Yeah, X sheets are always going to be, I feel like, on paper. Because when we had shout out to Shane Curry's episode where we talked about timing and X sheets, he was doing them on paper.
Hmm.
And on American Dad,
American
right?
Dad, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So when you finally started freelancing and then working on The Simpsons, was it in design still, or did you switch over to storyboarding? What were you doing?
Oh, it was character design only. Yeah, not storyboarding.
Nice.
Ironic. I mean, you would think maybe storyboarding because I love comics so much, but storyboarding to me is like if I, because I never stopped making comics and I always
Mhm.
want to be. So in my mind, it's like, there's no way I'd be able to. I mean, some people can and great if they can, but I was like, that'd be so much work to board all day and then make a
Dude,
comic all night. It's like, no,
How
I
do you
want
do
to.
it, V?
I I do it, but like right now I'm directing on a show, which I
Yeah,
love and is great, and I love the show's gonna come out awesome. But it is kind of impossible to direct
Yeah.
on a season one show. I
sure.
mean,
Yeah, no way.
boards can be really tough. This is just a little tangent, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I feel like you can kind of pace yourself out way more, but with like a lot of these adult shows, because episodes are broken down into sequences and you're constantly handing out stuff to everybody and making sure everybody's busy all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
demanding and hard. And I do feel like you cracked the code because I'm jealous of what you just said. I'm like, I want to be working on my comics and I can't right
I feel I,
now, and
I
I'm
feel like it's
mad.
also nice. It's also nice
Yeah.
to be able to do a day job that, even though it's related, it's slightly different from
Mm.
the other thing that you're doing.
Yeah,
It's for the same reason that some people say, like, if you're feeling stifled, or if you're feeling like you need a break but you still want to be productive, try drawing some designs instead of storyboarding. It's like you're taking a break doing something else.
totally. And what's great is like, so for me, I mean, like I was not, I wasn't strong in perspective. So I even knew that at least on The Simpsons, storyboarding would not be for me because, and I didn't study storyboarding. It is way different than, like, I can make a lot of stuff up in my comics and cheat things, but on the show you can't really do that. So I knew it wasn't the place for me anyway. But with design, like, I've been drawing the characters my whole life since I was a little kid, and obviously it wasn't good to go when I got the job. I had to do a ton of practice. But what I'm getting at is that for character design, it was like you said, it's like not the same as drawing a comic at all.
Hmm.
So you're drawing model sheets, and here and there I will do, stills like that. That's why it's kind of fun, because it's similar sometimes to a comic. When, a magazine cover I'll do, or a whole end title card or something where it's like a composition, but I'm not actually boarding, where I actually have to
Yeah.
board a whole scene of a car chase. Like, that's not for
Sure,
me.
sure, sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think you
That's the
said
part.
something interesting in I mean, all of it was interesting, but there's the part that I think that is interesting is that you already were drawing Simpsons characters,
Yeah.
but you had to learn how to draw them.
Yeah.
Were there any big things that like you had just always drawn them one way, but when you go onto the show, you realize there's all these like little technical things that you have to get right? Did you have to like unlearn anything, like any ways that you had drawn these characters throughout your whole life,
Oh yeah.
like
No.
when you actually went on the show and they're like, you're drawing him wrong there, you
Oh,
know?
100%. I mean, I look at the drawings I was doing even while I was interning, and they're just, I didn't really think, or it's a common misconception that, for me, I don't know about other people, but that because they're so cartoony, they're easy, but they're so hard. And like,
Mm-hmm.
I would
Yeah.
just draw them in my sketchbook and be like, there you go, that's them. Even though now looking, I'm like, how did I think that looked like them? That doesn't look anything like them. So I was drawing them, but I wasn't drawing them on model ever.
Yeah,
And then when I started to really learn and look at the style guides and everything, it's like, oh my God, like, I don't know how to draw them at all. Like, I had to
there's so much
relearn
structure.
everything. Yeah, everything. And even now, I mean, like, now I can Simpsonize people, but the main family is still very hard. Like, they're so
Mm.
simple with few lines that you can, mess it up by not, having lines here and there. And especially turning those heads in perspective for like certain shots. Not that I'm animating them, but if
Hmm.
there's a still that I need to draw them an upshot of this, they're really difficult. And luckily, every person is so nice on this show that they're very kind with giving me tips, and they have been when I was an intern and such. And yeah, so it's really fun though, because there's no other characters I would want to draw, honestly.
Have you ever seen one of these like tweets where they're like, wow, look at the old Simpsons
Uh-huh.
stills versus the new Simpsons? And do you have thoughts on these kind of tweets? You know, where like the
Yeah,
drawings
yeah,
will be
yeah.
so insane, or like the
It's like
Uh-huh.
mouth will
model
look like,
breaking all the time.
I
Yeah.
think
yeah,
that's
yeah.
just like any show in the beginning when they're figuring out a show, like
Mhm.
most shows don't run this long. So eventually like
Mhm.
any show, you have a set guide, but that's just like in the beginning of any show where you experiment and mess around, and you can have, more experimentation with like,
Yeah.
how do I want these characters to move and laugh and everything. And I mean, by the time, obviously, when I got on the show, it was set in stone at that point. But it's cool that like even now they still let the because our show has animators, unlike other shows, or some, mainly just boards, and they ship those out. But we have a whole layout department, so the layout artist can still, even though there's a model, like you still can see them really have fun with it, as opposed to like shipping a model, which we don't do, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, so you're not
awesome.
just like dropping in like a digital
Yeah, not at
like
all. Yeah.
model necessarily. You're, yeah. I think that's cool. I do you wish that you had gotten a chance to work on it during a more experimental time where you could do like maybe bigger poses or like more model breaky stuff, or do
Um,
you do you like the neat, the little bit more of a neat version,
no,
the
I mean,
more rules?
I actually think in design it doesn't apply like as much. Like there's rules for like when you animate them, like you can't do this face or that face anymore, but
Okay,
design actually is pretty much about the same. Where like yes, there's a model,
cool.
but you can have fun with it. So I don't really
That's
feel
awesome.
like I missed out necessarily, which is nice. But the only thing I did miss out on, which a little bit of a tangent, is I really wanted to draw for Simpsons comics when I was younger. I never thought I could work on the
Oh,
show, but Simpsons comics folded, I think, a, I don't know, 6 years ago. I can't remember anymore, but I never got the chance to do that. And that really was my dream when I was younger. I was like, oh, I want to draw for Simpsons comics because it seemed attainable. The show seemed like, I don't know how to work on the show. That's never going to happen.
That's so funny that like the dream kind of like switched around.
Yeah. Yeah.
If
So,
you were okay, pie in the sky, if you had your own show, how would you kind of handle design? Would you be like, would you think it would be possible to tell people like just draw? Because your comics, the characters are like pretty loose-ish kind of style, wouldn't you say?
yeah, I think so. I don't know. I've never really thought about that, to be honest, because I think that as long as there's so many talented people that can quickly adapt to another person's style, that I think that
Mhm.
if I did, it wouldn't really be an issue. Where if I were to draw one thing, I'm sure that there would be a great team that would be able to just replicate it right away. I mean, that's what I saw with like how I went from seeing, Johnny the Homicidal Maniac to Invader Zim. Like that whole team
Mhm.
really got his style pretty much.
yeah.
That's so true.
I was curious if you're down to kind of like step back with me.
Yeah.
I can tell just even by your drawings that you're into a certain amount of punk and indie like music subculture.
Yeah.
How for when did you start getting into that stuff, and how has it affected your art over the years, would you say?
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting because like I never made any connection between that and my art till I started to make stories like about my high school and stuff. But I guess I would say that that's where it started because like I didn't listen to any music till I was in like eighth grade. And then like in eighth grade, I just was introduced to like all these punk and ska bands and everything. And I still wasn't drawing anything like I'm drawing now. So clearly that was any connection that you're seeing came years later because I was still pretty much drawing like again very like SpongeBob Simpson-esque type
Mm-hmm.
characters all the way until close to finishing college actually. So like but I was into all that stuff like going to concerts every week and everything. So I don't know, that was just marinating for years or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
And then I don't know, it just can't, you know what I think in college because I had such a small, what word am I looking for, like my pool of inspiration was limited, like that's what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
And so
okay.
when I got to college I was introduced to so many different artists and
Sure.
comics that I didn't know of, and that I think that also like drastically changed the direction I was going with my stuff because I never sat there and like I'm gonna come up with a style. It just I think just by like because what I read prior to college was, like I said, I loved cartoons, Nickelodeon, The Simpsons. I was reading Peanuts. I read, Life in Hell and stuff, and I read Mad Magazine and everything. But suddenly, then I didn't read anything, anything that you would consider a punk comic or whatever. Nothing like that. And then I read Bone. I loved Bone. I still love Bone. But again, that's still very like adventure-y and kids stuff. And then yeah, in college, I was introduced to so many different artists like Charles Burns and Daniel Clowes. I didn't know who these people were before college, which is crazy. And Art Spiegelman and all those guys, all the Raw magazine stuff really influenced me. And then after I read Black Hole by Charles Burns, like that was like a really big influence on me. And I just felt like this was not obviously conscious, so I'm not saying that, but I feel like I'm just trying to draw like him. Like that's my style.
No, I got it. Got
yeah, I agree. I think he's my favorite Charles Burns, and I think Black Hole is probably one of my favorite comics of his. I mean,
Me
I did
too.
really like X'd Out as well. That one was really
Yes, I love
awesome.
that.
But yeah, I'm very like amazing art, so inspiring every time.
So I don't know. I guess it's that. It's like it just suddenly then all clicked and connected because I didn't set out to do anything like that. But yeah, I was obsessed with going to punk and ska concerts and all that stuff my whole high school years. And yeah, I don't know. It just worked out that way.
And it's funny because I feel like some of it is probably like you getting into that style of music, but also probably almost like secondhand. Like the people that you're into were into it, but I do see when I look through your art, a lot of it feels like punk scenes or like a scrappy, like gritty, like punk album cover or like a show cover, like a show poster. And as somebody who was I was very interested alternatively in metal covers. That was some of my first influences when I was really getting serious into illustration. Like, yeah, I'm like, there's the guys with mohawks and leather jackets and buttons, and I think the thing about punk in general is that it's like in a lot of cases it's pretty maximalist. Like there's always like lots of little patches and buttons and stuff to fill up a character, and I think that it lends itself to a style that is busy is the right way to describe your work. Busy, I don't know if that's the right word, but
if you describe it, then it is.
I mean, if you look at if you look at a lot of your illustrations, the walls are covered in posters, and there's grit, and there's little things all over the place,
things like that.
Yeah, it sounds like lots of life.
Yeah, I think if anything, that maybe comes from like earlier stuff like Mad Magazine, where they had so many little details packed in and everything, and I just really like tiny little details and creating an environment and stuff. It's just really fun for me. Like, I don't know why. Cool. I've always just enjoyed doing that. So I guess maybe that's where that comes from,
Sure.
Yeah, that's so cool. I also really like your use of black and white. I think
Me too.
you manage to have these very complex compositions with a lot of stuff going on in them and still make them like very easy to read with the way that you have you always worked black and white, or like what's your relationship to like color versus black and white?
Yeah, I know it's funny. Like even the comics I was making when I was really young, even though like I said they were goofy and cartoony, they were pretty much just black and white, and only because I don't think there's any I didn't have an aversion to coloring, but it was just, I think, when you read, when you're that young, you copy what you read. And I just happened to be reading black and white comics. Like I just said, anything before, whether it was like the Life in Hell comics by Matt Groening or Peanuts or Bone, all the stuff I liked was just happened to be black and white. So I'm like, I'm going to do black and white. And color, I guess, is a little intimidating to me. So I just, more and more and more, the more I did black and white, and in school too, met with professors, cartoonists who told you what books to get on black and white, and there's a book called How to Draw Noir Comics that I read in college that's good, and Framed Ink is a composition book. Anyway, I just got really into it, and I just continued with that, and that's kind of where that comes from, and it just became more and more fun to figure out where to put blacks in substitution for color. And I do color here and there when it's required of me for a band flyer or something like that. But if I can, I just really love doing stuff in black and white and making it as clear as possible.
Dude, I get that. It used to be like, I feel like I started doing color because I was like, it sells better.
That
And
is
that,
true.
have you ever had that? Like, I feel like I had everybody tell me, like, why don't you color your drawings?
Yeah,
And
I did at one point, but then I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that.
I
I just don't want to. It's not fun. I love black and white because I don't know. Even Black Hole, like you said, that's black and white comic, and that was such a big influence. And it's like I love how he uses black and white. Oh, Sin City too. Even though I'm not a big, that's not really my thing, but I read that and absolutely loved the way it looked.
It's funny. I wonder how many people have cracked under the pressure of, are you going to finish that drawing and color it? like I wonder how many
That's
people
funny.
just over the years
Dude,
have
I
crumbled,
did.
you know?
Because like
You
for
did.
conventions and stuff, it's really like, first of all, you have to color the covers. Like I've noticed all of my comics or all of the
Sure.
little zines or whatever that I made that have a black and white cover do not sell as well. They don't catch people's eye. And then when they open the comic, it's something that I've noticed. And it's something I think about just because, like, you know, of like tabling and conventions and stuff.
I mean,
Talking
I hope
about
that sometimes it can be the opposite too, that if it's so colored and if the black is used as a color, it can attract people's attention. But if it's like just line art, that definitely is a harder sell. But sometimes if you do like just really stark black and white stuff, then I think then it can be the opposite effect where like, oh, what's this? My eye's drawn to it because of all the black.
Yeah, I could see that like 100%. Yeah. And then you kind of get like more of the like tattoo crowd and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
It's funny.
yeah, I feel like for my black and white stuff that was all inks. Yeah, definitely a lot of people got like, they were like, oh, can I get this as tattoo? Did you ever get, and did anybody ever like ask you if they could get your art tattooed? I feel like they would work really great
Yeah,
on tattoos.
actually, a few people have. There have been a few that have got tattoos of stuff I've done. Ironically, not black and white stuff, though. A lot of it's been
Really? That's so funny.
like Simpsons drawings that I've done that they've got tattooed, or things that I happen to do in color, the rare occasions that they have. But yeah, oddly enough.
That is so funny.
When did you start animating your own work? Because normally I would look at your style and I'm like okay, these are great for comics, but they seem like in some cases that they would even be challenging to animate. I know in recent times you've made some animated shorts. I'm curious about your journey into making your comic style stuff animate.
Yeah, I think that started because, like I said, in undergrad, it was just comics, but I took one Flash animation class, and that was the first time I really ever animated anything. And at that point, it wasn't this style you see today. So it was just me learning basics of animating stuff. So that was a little different. But then I had an internship at Augenblick in New York because I went to school in
I've also
Manhattan.
interned at Augenblick.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
What year?
Well, what was it? Probably 2012 ish.
Wait a minute. That's when I was there, I think.
Oh,
I'm not kidding. Do you remember the project you were working on?
I was working on Ugly Americans.
Okay, I was working on, they were doing a Zoolander animated thing.
Oh, okay. I remember at that time that was like the Wild West of internships, where we were working on art, and we were cleaning up backgrounds, we were doing in betweens.
That's where I was
and
going
that
with
was
it.
before the rules. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Like that was the first time I was really animating stuff, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing.
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Wow. And so they're telling you, okay, animate this. And how do you not break down and have a panic attack? How did you feel
it was in betweening, so it was okay.
Okay.
It was not bad. It was fun. It really taught me a lot, and people there were nice to show you. But it is crazy that like I was an intern just like animating on that movie, which I don't even know if it came out, to be honest. But yeah. So after that, so then at UCLA is the first time I actually decided to like try to animate my characters in a style similar to what you see now.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, I just kind of treated it as a comic, to be honest. That's really the longest thing I ever did. It was 5 minutes, but it wasn't like really like fluid three-dimensional animation. It was
Sure.
2D, but I kind of kept it like a moving comic. And there is animation in there, of course, but
Yeah.
I just had to figure it out on the fly. And like obviously school helped, but other than that, I really didn't animate anything for a few years till the past few years, which was a thing for Giphy, and I did something for Adult Swim. But again, I kind of treat them for the most part like moving comics because
Sure.
I don't, I do animate them, but I don't do big sweeping kind of, I can't do like Disney style animation. It's,
Yeah.
again, it's probably like, it's close to what I grew up watching, whatever you want to say, like Kablam and crude style stuff, on Nickelodeon.
Sure. Well, you also made some stuff for Studio Digital, right?
Yes, and Studio Digital. That was the other one I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's where I know your work from because
Yes,
I made a
yes.
bunch of stuff for Studio Digital too.
Oh, you did also around the same
Yeah,
time
yeah,
I
yeah.
did?
I think that you might have been doing stuff a little bit before me,
Okay.
maybe. But yeah, there was about a year where I made like 12
Oh, wow,
shorts or
you made
something like
12.
that.
I only did like 3 or 4. I think
I
4.
did a web series with them. Yeah,
Did you
Break
like
Down and Cry.
No, I
Yes.
was gonna say, well, I was gonna
Oh,
say that it was really fun, but they had to be done in such a short amount of time.
very fast. Very fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was that schedule like for you? Because your style doesn't strike me as something where, how should I say this? I have a feeling you're the type of person that would get asked to make a short and you wouldn't necessarily make things less detailed to make the short. So how is dealing with a time constraint of I know that for part time they wanted a minute done in 2 weeks, and for full
Yeah.
time they wanted a 1 minute short done in 2 weeks, and for part time they wanted a short done in 1 month.
Yeah, no, I mean they were great. I don't really remember any pressure from them, and I remember I think I did it under the correct allotted time. Maybe I was a little
Awesome.
over, but I don't remember. I really think it was because the second work ended, like 6 p.m., I just went straight to that. Like it was just like every night. And it was just fun because I was just super excited to be a part of it. So I just really wanted to do something and I didn't want to cut any corners. And, I put a lot of detail into the backgrounds with like
Yeah,
limited
yeah.
animation because, again, it's like a moving comic, whatever. But one of the ones I did had a lot. I mean, again, not a lot relative to some other animation, but for me, it had a lot of animation. It was like that. I don't know if you remember. It was like a Valentine's Day head banging one, and that was
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to figure out how to animate hair moving and head banging and this and that. And so that took a while, but again, because it was fun, I didn't have a problem with it, and I I did learn something that is not going to surprise anyone about myself, that when you're at the computer all day at a Cintiq, the last thing that you want to do is stare at the Cintiq till like 3 a.m. after work. So that's why I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
oh man, I don't want to do another one of these for a while because my eyes were just, so that's why I was like, I got back to finishing my comic because then I going to the being at the drawing table then till 3 a.m. or whatever, 1 a.m. midnight is way different because I'm looking at a piece of paper and it's like, oh, this is great. I'm not burnt out because I'm switching
Mhm.
completely, but I was burnt out at the computer and then
Sure,
again at
sure.
the computer.
Dude, this is surreal. This is so real.
That is so funny that I feel like this is going to sound insane. If there's anybody that's listening to this that doesn't do digital art or like doesn't like maybe isn't even a full-time artist or whatever, like that is going to sound crazy that like oh like I can draw for 8 hours at work and then 8 hours after work but only if it's on paper afterwards. And they're like, "What? That's still so much drawing." But
Yeah, but it's
yeah, I
different
mean
if it's
changing
your,
location.
yeah,
Mhm.
location, and also it's different. Like if let's say I went to another freelance job, I probably wouldn't have fun. But because it's
Mhm.
my own thing that I'm doing and no one's telling me to do anything, then it's like I couldn't wait for the like, and that was essentially the same thing with Studio Digital. They let you do whatever you want. So as long as it was my own thing and there was no burnout for me, but I guarantee there would be if it was like, all right, 8 hours and now it's time to go do another freelance project for a different studio or so. If that were the case, then I don't know if I'd be able to do that.
Honestly, yeah, it's really tough. I feel like that's kind of that's the reason why doing comics on the side is just so fun,
Yeah.
and I you know, it's when I'm the happiest. And like it's funny because I was like answering a couple of questions from a student that was like asking me, like, you know, like if if comics was the only thing that I did. And unfortunately I had to be like, no, I wish that could be the only thing that I do. How do you kind of think about your comics? Are they like, in the financial side of it, are you just like hoping to just recoup enough money to carry production costs? Like,
Sure.
why would you say, obviously it's a passion project and you would be doing it
Yeah, yeah,
no
yeah.
matter what, but like
Sure.
you must have also some other kind of goal associated
Yeah,
with it.
no, no, that's true. I mean, I think I would be doing it regardless, but yeah, I think as long as I can make money back for printing, then I'm okay, like that's kind of
Hmm.
what matters because again, I'm lucky that I have a day job and I can do comics on the side, and that was kind of like orchestrated because when I was graduating, it was scary to be like, oh my God, I'm graduating school and comics is going to be really hard to support myself full time. So I was like, in animation, you can have a day job
Hmm.
and then you can also do what you want after, and it's like, oh, if I can have a day job doing something I love also, that's great, because at the time I was working at like CVS. So yeah, so
Yeah.
to answer your question, yeah, it's like it's great to make money back for the printing, and anything else is just extra that I could put back into, like, okay, printing for the next one, or I like for this one I made a bunch of trading cards, like to put in
Hmm.
each
That's
issue,
cool.
and little posters. So anything extra I can just put into more stuff, because it's just really fun to be able to, like, you know create this whole little world around it, and sustain it that way. And it's been really cool to ship it to a ton of comic book stores. It's been really nice and friendly to me with selling it in their shops, because most stores are like 50-50, some are 60-40, some are even 80-20. But at the end of the day, I'm just happy for it to be in a store, because it's
Yeah.
not really for money. It's like I want someone to read it and enjoy it. So, like, if there is money, that's great, but I never really cared too much about that. Maybe I should.
Yeah. For the audience listening, if they're not familiar with like what you said, 80-20, like 50-50,
Yeah, yeah.
etc. Like, can you explain it in a lot
Yeah,
in
most stores are like, if you walk in with a comic, they'll either do wholesale or consignment. Wholesale is they'll just buy, three, four, five from you, pay you 50-50, like 50 goes to you, 50 goes to them. So if your comic is $10, they'll give you $5 per copy. So it's even. But a lot of stores are very creator friendly, so they will do 60-40. So the 60 will go to
Oh,
the
cool.
artist and the
Mm.
40 will go to the store. I've really never, I mean, I've never encountered it the other way around, but I have encountered it at the greatest 80-20, where 80 goes to the artist, and that's pretty awesome. And in
Whoa.
rare scenario,
Wow.
super rare scenarios, some stores will just give you all of it if they sell, but that's, they need to make money too. So,
Yeah, 100%. I feel like usually what I've been doing with my books, so depending on the store,
uh-huh,
so spicy. Depending on the store. If I know it's a store that makes lots of money
uh-huh.
because they sell other things, like for example, like prints or like framed art,
Yeah.
I will be like, oh, just double the price of my comic and you keep that other half. So I make them
Huh.
buy the comic full
That's funny.
price and I tell them to make the price higher.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, everything's expensive in your shop anyway. Just do
Sure.
that.
Yeah. I mean,
And
yeah.
other shops, I'm like, all right, I can sell it to you. Like, I make them buy the cost of production of the comic pretty much. So they just pay for the production cost of the comic and they sell it
Oh,
at the
okay.
price point I sell it on my shop and they keep the rest.
Huh. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And that's worked out?
yeah, just for like, for example, for like tiny shops. Like,
Okay.
that's what I did with Birdcage. I was like,
Hmm.
okay, you can just
Oh,
have it like, or like very close to just production costs, just because I'm like, oh, they're like a tiny shop. I want to support them. I
yeah.
think what they're doing is really
Yeah,
cool.
that is
And
nice.
yeah, and it's like, and at least I'm not quote unquote losing money because I guess they're like buying back.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, but that's definitely not a way to make money as an artist.
No, no, and that's always tricky because like we didn't do this because we wanted to. I mean, maybe some people did. I didn't do this because I want to make money. I just want to make stuff. So it's like, oh yeah, I also have to think about making money.
Yeah. So yeah, how did you reach out to stores? How you distribute your comics? Because you're distributing yourself.
Well, I started that like in college when I finished my thesis project, and part of it is I don't remember if you had to print it, but you definitely had to have the pages finished. And once I had them finished, and they have like a little show there and everything on the gallery for the school, then I was like, oh, you know what? It's a finished comic. I'll print it. So at that point, I literally just walked around and into the local stores in New Jersey, like, hey, can you sell this? And most places are like, yeah, sure, I'll put it on the shelf. But now so many years later, there was no Instagram yet either. So now, years later, with Instagram and everything, I've just found so many amazing indie comic stores across the country. So really, like, most stores are super friendly and they want to have your stuff there. So I've just emailed stores that look like they're creator friendly and they sell stuff that I think hopefully my stuff will fit in. And I just message them or email them and say, hey, I have a comic. Here's a photo of it. I haven't really sent a PDF usually. A picture is usually enough. And most stores are like, no, they'll buy 3, 4, see how it does, and they'll let you know if they want more, or if not, or they'll let you know. And yeah, it's pretty easy. And here in LA, I've just walked into places, but out of state places, I have emailed. I actually also drove across the country this year with 2 friends and stopped at comic book stores across the whole
Oh my
country.
God.
Oh, that is so
That's
cool.
cool.
Bringing a thanks. I've always wanted to do that. I love road trips. And it was like, I went on one before and I was like, wait, why did I not do this last time? I didn't go into one comic book store last time. So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this time I'm going to go. I just finished the comic. It worked out. So I brought it to stores in every state I drove through. So that was great. But here in LA, yeah, I just walked into like House of Secrets in Burbank has been super supportive. Golden Apple, Skylight Books. Most
Skylight
people
is awesome.
Yeah, I love
Yeah, they're
Skylight.
rad. I remember they were down to just have my zine in there. Like
Yeah,
I
they're
just made like
great
a little
with that
little
stuff.
comic zine. It's cool.
Yeah, that's something that I really appreciate about I think a lot of big cities here in the US are like very kind of like art friendly, where there's going to be some of that like indie culture and a couple of shops there that like, because I remember going into Skylight Books and being like, hey, will you carry my little books or whatever? And they were like, sure.
Sure.
How do you keep track
Of
of
which
where
stores?
which store, how many books? Are like, what's your philosophy here? Are you kind of like, oh, if they give me money, they give me money, or are you kind of like on top of it, or
I would say that I definitely do keep track. I have a Word document with how many comics I dropped off
nice.
to every store. I don't. Most stores say check in within 3 months, but I usually go way longer than that just because I want, I feel like realistically, it's probably more like 6 months I'll check in.
Okay.
And so I haven't hit that mark yet where I've checked in for this new comic, but I will soon and see how many have sold. And that's why I prefer wholesale, because you never need to follow up and like, oh, did this sell or blah, blah, blah. But it's fine. I mean, I'm just happy to have anything in a store. So yeah, I'll follow up pretty soon. And I have a document with all the ones that I've marked wholesale versus consignment, and then how many copies each store has.
That's
A lot to keep track of.
Yeah, no, it is. But it's fine. I mean, it's fun.
Would you say you do more sales with stores, your online shop, or tabling?
I think online, surprisingly, because I always think that it's going to be tabling, but this comic, so it's been 4 years since I put one out just because I'm slow. And I kept getting other projects I was doing, the bento box thing and Adult Swim. There were so many different things in the past 4 years that I was putting this comic to the side. So because of that, I don't really even remember 4 years ago. I wouldn't be able to answer from then what was better, but I'll just speak to this new one. And this one surprisingly was online, which was very nice because it means that, a lot of people were following the page and they were excited to read it. And I had more orders than I ever remember from my post on Instagram and website. And that was really cool. And I think I haven't tabled with this book yet other than San Diego Comic-Con. And San Diego is always about the same for me. Like, I don't quite fit in there, let's say, but I think people who are looking for something different come to my table. So I always make my money back there, and I'm glad to be there because I always meet really cool people. But so I don't really qualify that as a show per se, because I really think that to know how I do versus online would be like the indie comic shows like Comic Arts LA and Mice in
Mhm.
Boston and TCAF in Toronto. And I haven't done any of that yet for this comic, so I don't know, but it's been
Mm.
really great online, so that's been good.
Dude, are you going to Cala this year?
I am, yeah, I got a table there,
Hell
which I'm super excited
yeah.
about. Are you?
I
Oh,
am.
awesome. Well, I'll see you there.
I'll see you there. I'm so excited. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
so excited when I moved to LA. So for people listening, if you don't live in LA and you're not familiar with the comic scene in LA, Kala is this little comic show over 2 days that was really like super well curated. It was
it
like
really
it was
was.
like the really cool spot, and then it stopped because of the pandemic and yada yada. And it was always my goal to eventually one day table there. And I applied multiple years
Yeah,
and I got rejected again and again because I didn't have enough comics.
I don't even know if that's it, to be honest, to make you feel better, because I've applied 1 year, got rejected, 1 year not been rejected, 1 year been rejected. And I'm not saying even consistently year to year. I just think that there's so many applications that they just try to each year put in
Yeah.
different people. Because there have been years that I haven't and had, so I'm just happy this year I happened to be chosen. And I feel like it's never about that. I think I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not the organizer, but at least I'll only bring it up because of what we're talking about. But the comic show that I'm curating, which is going to be in September, was that's the
Yes.
way we went about it. It was like it's about space and who we write down for who will want next time, if there is a next time for
Mhm.
this one. But yeah, so I think in your case it was not about your quantity of comics. I Because you got in this year, so you know.
Oh yeah, but this year I have way more
Oh,
comics.
okay. Well, then forget everything I just said.
No, but also I think there is a thing where it's just kind of like as a I have noticed that before when I used to apply, my Instagram was a little bit all over the place. Like, there wasn't like a ton of comics. It was like more
Uh-huh.
illustrations than comics. And then there was like a year when I was like, I made a conscious decision. Okay, now all I'm going to post are comics or
Oh,
things
okay.
related to my comics. But I'm
Sure.
making the switch on my Instagram profiles, on my Instagram profile to be like a fully like I'm front facing comics, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of changed the perception people have of me. And also like a side thing, and then I want to talk about your comics festival.
Sure.
A side thing is like also you can definitely like team up with people. Like there's a couple of my buddies that like didn't get into Kella, but like I'm like, oh, I can like rep your comic on my
Oh,
table
that's
and like
great. That's
stuff like
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's like, it's all about like the community, and it's also just kind of like you have to think
100%.
about like, like these tables are very small, but that doesn't mean that there isn't enough room for everybody. So it's like kind of like optimizing that space
Yeah,
and
no, that's a great
and
idea.
stuff.
How have you found the comics community? Have you found it to be supportive or a little bit more on the competitive side? Because I hear different things.
I don't know. I mean, I feel like it's like an online community, right? Like on Instagram. Like most of the comics
Mhm.
friends I've made have been through Instagram,
Oh,
and
okay.
everyone's always been super supportive and friendly. Or I guess the ones that aren't, I
Yeah.
guess I don't know about or I don't speak to, right? Like you'll never know, but at least the ones that I do have been, and that's how I am to other people. So I found that it's good. I mean, I I feel like there's, between, like, I think I was saying
Hmm.
earlier, like, Mikey Heller through that really cool Comics O'Clock thing, and
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
been super cool about, like, oh, whoever wants to read, come here. Like, I feel like everyone's pretty friendly because everybody just wants to draw and make comics and have fun. And anyone that's not like that, I guess we won't hear from them. I don't know.
Well, I was curious because something that I've heard from other comics folks
Yeah.
is that there's a stigma against people who are in the animation industry dipping their toe into comics,
Oh,
and
that's
people
funny.
get kind of like gatekeepy about it. And I've
Yeah.
I've had friends
Yeah.
that like they'll be in a conversation with somebody and they're at a comics thing and they do comics, but when someone finds out that they have an animation job, the person will just like cut off the conversation.
Yeah.
like,
I mean,
so I'm just curious if you ever run
yeah,
into something
I
like that.
have. No, I definitely have. I guess I don't.
Oh, here in LA?
Yeah, I definitely have had what
Oh,
you're describing. I just think it's so dumb. Like I would never be that way because like I was saying earlier, when we were kids, like we weren't thinking about like comics versus animation. We all liked
Right.
comics and animation. Like it's both great. Like I didn't even see them as two different things. I just like drawing and they're
Right.
two different mediums. So it's like it's so dumb. Anyone that thinks that is just, I don't know, they're insecure for one reason or another because
I do.
maybe they were judged by their parents for something and now they're trying to put it out on us because they have unresolved issues. I don't know who's to say,
Sorry to
but
take it to a negative place, but I was just
yeah,
curious if you've ever
I
dealt with that.
I do
I
think there
have, yeah.
is a part of the community. Like, okay, if you're trying to go full time, 100% indie, and that's it, it's a hard life. Like, it's hard financially,
Yeah.
it's hard, like, emotionally, it's very lonely. Not a lot of people get big. Like, Dash Shaw managed to do that. He does, like, mostly indie comics,
Hmm.
and he's financially living from the comics only. I do think like that is so rare, and I can understand someone being like, well, like, oh, you're taking both of the jobs, kind of like, you're taking room in two of those spots, or
Yeah.
you're not
Well,
living the
it's not
hard
really taking
life.
room if you're making your own stuff, you know,
No, that's true. That's true.
because you're
But I
not
guess if you're
taking
like
two. Yeah.
if you're competing in like for like the Eisner Awards or whatever, I know there's a lot of drama around the
My friend got denied a table, and you got a table, and you work on Simpsons.
exactly.
Explain that. Yeah.
Except it's I think that's what it is. It's like, well, this is money for me, this table. You don't need that money because you have an animation job, but I need it and I need this to
That's
I think
funny,
that's
but
what
you
it
could say that about anything. I mean, like animation job doesn't mean you're rich. Especially living in LA. It's like that doesn't mean like you can. I mean, when I was an intern at other places, or sorry, a PA at other places, some places you get paid more at McDonald's than a PA. So it's like it doesn't
Yeah.
really mean anything.
Yeah.
It's like what's the
Yeah.
difference at the end? It's just I think that's just. It sounds like it's just someone who wants to be confrontational for no reason. Because like again, we all just did this because we like drawing.
Yeah. No, that's so true. That's so
Yeah.
true.
It's sort of like being bi. You're getting fucked from both sides. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Like you have animation, and they're gonna fuck you in some kind of way. You're in comics, and they're gonna fuck you in another kind of way.
Yeah, you could.
And
Every industry has their version of what you just described. To be honest.
Yeah, that's true. I was trying to see like to be the devil's advocate for a little bit.
Yeah, no, no, I
Um
understand.
no, you're just a
and
glutton for punishment, and you want hardship in multiple industries. That's
Yeah.
admirable.
I just love going through tough times, so I'm just gonna double the amount of opportunities to have pain and suffering in art making.
No
Uh,
pain,
Yeah.
no gain, and that's why we're going to be really strong. To quote a Mr. Levinstein comic recently, shout out Mr. Levinstein. Mr. Levinstein, episode 137. I stole your joke for this podcast. Thank you.
So, Sam, you have a comics festival coming up.
Yes.
First of all, is it the first edition of this festival? Is it the first time that you're running it?
It is. It's funny because the genesis of this show is because I thought Comic Arts LA was never coming back. Like this is like a
That
year in the
is
works. And
so
it
funny.
is,
Oh my.
yeah. So it's like because I'm friends with Jared at Silver Lake Shorts, I was thinking like, you know what? Like I became friends with him. I love what Silver Lake Shorts is doing. And I was inspired because I'm sure you guys remember, or maybe you guys remember Meltdown Comics, and I used to love going to that store. And they had
Yeah.
events all the time, like different comic events. And my friend Aristotle would curate Zine Melt. And it was just like there were other comic events happening all the time pre-Cala. But even after Cala started, I think that those events still were going on. It was fun to have just like a mini comic show going on throughout the year, in addition to the big Comic Arts LA show. So when Comic Arts LA was gone, and of course Meltdown's been gone, I was like, man, there's really nothing. And then I liked Comics O'Clock and like the Heavy Manners Comics Fair. But then I was like, there needs to be more. And because there were
Yeah.
more, there were like 3 or 4 a year or something. And anyway, so because Jared was really cool about it, and he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's partner up, and we'll do a comic show. And then we were working on it for about a year, and thank God it does not like on the same day or anything. We would have changed it, but it's in September and Cal it's in December. So it's great. Now there's
Mhm.
two close, close enough and far away enough from each other that it's like you can get your mini version of Calla with different artists, a few months before, because this is going to be about 26 exhibitors at the one
Mhm.
I'm curating with Jared and Ben from Silver
Whoa.
Lake Shorts. So it'll be a good amount, and I think Calla's maybe double that. But anyway, yeah, so we're really excited for that because we really wanted to have another comic show in LA, and whether it happens yearly, we'll see how successful it is. I hope it will have a good turnout because we got a lot of really good artists that we'll be announcing later next week probably. And then there will be a
Ooh.
Oh,
live
you little
comics reading
tease.
too.
Can
What?
you can you
Oh, you
tease
little
it?
tease. Oh, you little
Yeah.
tease. Let's play Hangman.
No,
No,
because
no,
Ah,
I'm joking.
only
I'm
because
joking.
I
I'm
don't
joking.
even have the list in front of me right now, so I'm not gonna
not even
pretend to.
just one name. Is Mikey gonna be there?
Yes, he'll be there. So there you go.
Ha!
You got one
There you
name.
go.
Exclusive. Creative Block exclusive.
I'll
Mikey.
say that there'll be one or two even from the East Coast flying in, which is cool.
Whoa,
So
that's amazing. That is
yeah.
so cool.
And there'll be a comics reading after, which is fun. So in the same spot, the show ends at 7. It's from 3 to 7, which we're like, yeah, let's make it later in the afternoon because, it's a Saturday where people can wake up, do their thing, and then come to the show. And then 7:30 will be an hour, a little over an hour comics reading with a few different people. So that'll be really fun. And I am also happy that we made it 3 to 7. This is true, purely just good luck because that day I believe is also either I think it's Orange County Zine Fest. I'm like, oh no, it's the same day, but
Oh
I think it
No
no! What are the
ends
way.
chances?
before ours begin. So I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
that's
good.
good.
Or it ends maybe like an hour during, but either way, it's like, wow, it doesn't conflict really at all. And it's far
We'll have
away.
some
So
zine heads showing up with baseball bats with nails sticking out of them.
exactly.
Like,
But it
That
shouldn't be an
is
issue because they don't, ours is at night and that's in the morning. I think that starts at 10 or 11. So
that is so crazy to find out all that stuff. Like, tell us a little bit about what it's like organizing a zine fest. Like, let's imagine somebody listening to this podcast, like
yeah.
they live in another state, maybe like a smaller city, and they want to create or curate or like organize their own zine fest. What kind of advice would you give them?
Well, it really wouldn't be possible without the help of Jared and Silver Lake Shorts because they're really
Mhm.
providing, the venue and they're providing, and
Right.
then, so that's the number one thing that if you're gonna, have one, make sure that obviously you have a good venue for it. And because they've had so many events there, it's almost like, it's been tested. So it's not like, oh, this is a new venue. How's it going to be? So everyone knows it. There's a built-in audience, which is great for Silver Lake Short. So that's really helpful. I don't know if on my own I would go and curate it without having them as a partner. And I will also
Mhm.
say that it was really nice to have a sponsor because I've been to so many shows over the past 10 years, like in so many different states, that it's always great when you go to a show and they have some kind of extra thing for the vendors like water or a little snack or food. Many don't,
Mhm.
so we wanted to
yeah.
like have a small sponsor for this. So Sean from Athenium Comic Art, he represents me and a lot of other artists where he sells our original pages. He's sponsoring the event, which was super nice. We're
Oh,
able to
that's
get
awesome.
some, yeah, so we're able to get some stuff for the artists, or for the vendors, I should say. And he's going
Mhm.
to fly out and probably bring some maybe original pages from
Ooh.
the artists he represents because he represents a lot of really cool artists that they won't they're scattered across the country, so it's not that like they'll be here, but maybe their art will be here. Like he represents I think Tilly Walden, and man, now suddenly I'm Caroline Cash, and so many that I can't think of at the moment. Let me see, Noah Van Sciver, and yeah, anyway, so yeah, it'll be really fun. That's going to be a really good show. And to backtrack, I think if you are organizing your own show, it's just good to have all those little pieces if you can. Or start off small, like the one I used to do at Meltdown Comics by my friend Aristotle. He would just ask local people to set up and post flyers around town, and people showed up. And so you could do that too. We were just, trying to make it a little bigger for this one.
That's really cool. I like that you were posting little flyers around town. That's very
Hmm.
like OG. That's
Yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that because like, is it necessary? I don't know, but I really wanted to see what would happen if anyone will see it because of the flyer, because I just love flyers in general. Like that's why I
Yeah,
do
yeah,
so
yeah,
many
me
band
too.
flyers. I'm such a fan of just flyers and ads, which sounds weird, but like I just love cartoon advertisements. And so it was like, you know what, I'm gonna print some and just put them all around. So like the last Saturday I drove like all around LA, literally, and like just taped them up like downtown LA, the Arts District, Little Tokyo, Silver Lake, Echo Park, Highland Park. Like I put them everywhere.
That is so cool. That is so funny. I wonder,
Indie.
dude, I wish we could know how many people come from seeing the flyers. This is like legit a question I have because a friend of mine I was hanging out with today,
Hmm.
they're in a band and they were telling me we were talking about marketing because me with comics and then with the band, and I was like asking them like, so how's the label helping you like market the album and everything? And they were like,
They
well,
fucking don't.
first
No,
of
I'm
all,
just kidding.
they don't do a lot of it. But then they were like, but
Yeah,
then
yeah,
like the
yeah.
marketing team was like, well, just make stickers and stick them around town. And so the both of us, we were just kind
It's
of
like,
like,
thanks, dude. Thanks for
Well,
yeah.
the
But then I'm
advice.
like, does it actually work? Maybe it does work. I don't know. So yeah,
we'll see
I
how
wrote.
many people come and say they saw the flyer. So you know, what's funny is someone sent a picture of the flyer to one of the co-curators, Ben from Silver Lake Shorts, and was like, "Hey, I saw this flyer. I think that you would like this. It sounds like it's up your alley." And he's like, "I'm curating. Like I'm co-curating." So
That
someone
is
saw it.
that is
That's cool.
so funny. That is cool to know. That
Yeah.
is really cool.
Did you put a
Um,
QR code on your
No,
flyers?
I literally just put the date. There's no website or Instagram or anything.
That's
you.
awesome.
That is so funny. I wish you had put a QR code on it. That would have been, I didn't know you could have
Yeah, I
tracked
thought it was
it.
cooler to just keep it simple and just see, you know, just you have to
You're,
actually just show up or Google it, I guess.
yeah, you're OG. That's how you do it. Just quick question, because you said you love doing flyers for
Hmm.
like bands and
Yeah.
stuff. Have you ever turned down a request to do a flyer? And if so,
That's a
why?
good
Was it
question.
because you hated the band?
No, I've done lots of flyers for bands I don't listen to. Like I did, well, this is not the answer to your question, but a little tangent that I did one for Korn for House of Blues. That's like
Oh,
it's
Whoa.
in the House of Blues on a skateboard on the wall there because they asked a bunch of different artists to do flyers for sold out shows, but I don't listen to them at all. So I was like, not, it was hard because like I usually try to do them for bands that I love, so I'm inspired immediately. But this was like, I don't know what to do for Corn, so I just flipped through
That
my
is a cool
sketchbook.
show, though.
Yeah, yeah, I found something that worked. But to answer your question, I don't know if I have, to be honest, because usually
yeah.
if you're gonna ask me, then it's either a genre I like or a band I like. Not, I mean, if someone's gonna ask me, then they know that I'm already into that genre. I have never had like a metal band ask me because I don't really listen to them. It mainly is punk or ska bands that ask me
Yeah.
to do it. So I've been lucky that it's been the case, and I've reached out a lot myself to bands that I like to get the ball rolling on bigger bands that they won't know of my work. So I like harass them till I'm like, please let me do a flyer for your band, and that's
Oh, that's
worked
cool.
out once or twice. Like I was super happy to have done in 2021. I did a Green Day one, and I've always wanted to
Whoa, that's
do.
crazy.
It was for their
Oh,
like Hella Mega tour. They never printed it, sadly, but they posted it
Oh,
on their social media.
you got to print it
Um,
out yourself. Just get one copy
I
made.
did. That's exactly what I did.
Oh, that's
that
sick.
is
Yeah,
so
that's I don't have
cool.
anything on my wall of my own art framed except that one.
That is so cool.
I feel like you should get the corn one too. I'm not gonna lie, I would have switched places with you in a second.
Really?
Corn, it's a big honor. Yeah, corn. Holy shit.
That's
That's
funny. That is
crazy.
funny.
That is
Yeah,
so
well, if you go to
funny.
House of Blues in Anaheim, you'll see it on the wall there.
I'll, I'll steal it.
Yeah.
Ah!
It's signed by them, so you should steal
Whoa.
it.
Steal it, and then I'm gonna get you to sign it, and then I'm gonna sell it.
That's funny. But yeah, so no, I've
Flyer
never had to say
economy.
no to anything really.
Okay, maybe we can delete this question from the podcast, but do you ever do flyers for free?
No. I mean,
Aha!
I will say you don't have to delete it, but it takes so long because it's just like an
Yeah.
illustration.
Yeah.
So it's like would I even I've been lucky that bands that I admire, like really admire, like I would do it for free, have always paid me because like I think they know that
That's
Mm.
they
cool.
can't get real. I mean, I guess when it's for a company like that, for a label, I don't even think they can do that legally. Maybe they can, but no, I've
Mhm.
always been paid, which is nice. And is it a lot? No, but again, I'm so happy to be doing it that it's like I'm
Yeah.
happy to. I think early on when I was in college, maybe I did some for free, like when I would just be reaching out to bands. You know what? I have done them in exchange for tickets. That's what I've
Okay.
done
Oh, very
early
cool.
on. Like when I it all started real well. Okay, so I've always wanted to do flyers for sure because but I was so young, like, 18, 19. It's like no one was, and I didn't even have a portfolio back then. So I was like, if you email a band, like, can I do a flyer? Like, they're going to be like, who are you? But in college, I had a teacher, Gary Panter, who's a cartoonist. He did all the designs for Pee Wee's Playhouse, actually, and he has his own
Oh, oh
comic,
shit.
Jimbo, and it's been out for since the 80s, I think. He's a really cool artist. I remember one of the things he said to the class was like, do flyers, just do it, because he was like, he did a lot of flyers and stuff and album art. He was like, do it while you can before flyers disappear. And luckily they really haven't disappeared, and that was like over 10 years ago. But anyway, at that time I was like, okay, I'm going to do flyers, and because I always wanted to, and him just saying that was the push I needed. And then I would do stuff for like, okay, I'll do this flyer, but can I get 2 tickets? And sometimes they'll do that and even be like, okay, and you can have a backstage pass too. So that has worked out because then because of that, I've been able to meet some of the bands, and then like that maybe I wasn't there to see necessarily, but I want to
Yeah.
work with them. And then because of that, that could lead to another thing. And, just creating your own opportunities like that has always worked
Yeah.
out. Because sometimes I would reach out to the venue. Like I'd be like, oh, can I do a flyer
Oh.
for this show? And they'll be like, oh, okay. So like, it's not even for the band. That's what I would do back in the day. It'd be like, I can't get a hold of this band, but I can get a hold of the venue, like in New Jersey or whatever. So I'll do a flyer for the venue. And then because of that, they give you tickets, and you can tell the band,
Yeah.
I made a flyer for the venue. And, you never know how the connection will start.
I feel like that brings up a a point of contention that like it's something that I think about a lot and that I struggle with because
Hmm.
normally my advice for young artists is you deserve to be paid more, don't work for exposure, don't work for free,
Sure.
but there are so many instances where you do something for a band and the band knows somebody else and recommends
Uh-huh.
you for a music video for another band and they can actually pay and like and a lot of it at the beginning is about building up a resume, building up experience,
Yes.
building up contacts, building up basically doing the type of work that you want to be doing.
Well, but oh, sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead. Well, but
No, 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 no.
I was going to say, but here's the thing. Yes, don't work for free, but that's if someone's emailing you and saying, "Hey, we love your work. Do this flyer for us for free. It's good for exposure." Don't do that. But like, if you on your own accord love something, and you were like, you know what, I'll do this for free because I know it'll lead somewhere. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, like, you're the one going after someone else, and that's your own motivation. So like, if I think that it will pay off if I do a free flyer for a venue, but they'll give me tickets, so I'm kind of getting paid, and then because of that I'm able to meet a band, that's different. That's not like free work. I actually got something for it.
Yeah.
But if someone's reaching out to you taking advantage, then yeah, I wouldn't do that, and I don't think I have. But there have been many things that I've decided are worth doing for free because I'm going to get something from it. So it's
Sure.
just about being smart on what you're doing for free. But yeah, I would say it is a red flag if someone's reaching out to you trying to get free work.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
really good distinction, I think,
Mhm.
the way that you just put it, because it is way more inspiring and fun to do something for a band that you like. And it is funny how sometimes just doing a fan art or something, I think that happened to me. I did like a fan art of like Jurassic 5 because I really, really like that band.
Yeah.
Or it's not really a band, it's like a hip hop like
Okay.
crew. And then one of the MCs reached out to me to do their album cover. I was like, oh, that's
Oh, well,
pretty
there you go.
cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That was really cool. I was gonna say the flyer that you did for Silver Lake Shorts is really from Silver Lake Comics. Silver Lake Shorts presents
Yes,
Silver
yes.
Lake Comics. It's at the El Cid 4212 Sunset Boulevard on September 7th. The flyer is awesome, and
Oh,
I can
thanks.
tell you have like a lot of experience making cool flyers. It's a very eye-catchy
Oh,
flyer.
thank you. Know, it's funny because
Yeah.
that I usually love the process of making flyers, but that one took me like days and maybe weeks because I
Oh
couldn't figure out
no.
what to do, and like I went back and forth, and but I'm really happy with that one because usually I'm never happy with anything when I finish it, but this one I was like, oh, I like it. I don't know why. I think it's because I was really nervous, like, okay, this is what it's gonna be, so what am I gonna do? And I don't know, but anyway, thank you. Yeah, I had fun with that one, and I actually am gonna bring to the show. Oh, you know what? I'm not. I ignore what I just said. I did that one on paper, so I was going to bring the original to show at the show, but it won't be there because another tangent. But the 5th, September 5th, before the 7th of the big comic show, I'm having a show in Burbank at the Animation Guild of all 100 pages of my comic, and I'm gonna have the Silver Lake Shorts poster on display there.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
That is so cool.
thanks.
I wanted to ask more questions about. I mean, I know you said Jared helped a lot with
Yes.
making all of this happen, but how did you curate your guest list? Did you intentionally reach out to every single artist? Was it like you kind of like call for artists? What was your philosophy creating this art fair? Like it's really interesting. I've never talked to somebody who's curated an festival arts fair comics thing before, so I wonder what how you approached it, you know?
Yeah, I think because this is the first one ever, and it's like nobody knows about it. We didn't want to put out a call because like we wanted to
Mm.
really, again, if this happens again, who knows? We'll see how it goes. Then yeah, we'll probably put out a call or something like that. But for this one, yeah, we each there's 3 people, and we each are who are helping make this thing possible. And we knew that there's a limited amount of space, so because of that we really didn't want to put out a call when we know it's so limited. So we eat that between the 3 of us, there's
Mm.
only 26 spots. We just reached out to the people who we know and like, who live in LA and make comics, and we just went down a list and pretty much just, if someone was able to do it, great, you're on the list. If they weren't, we went to the next person. And then after that, we have a backup list for if people can't do it anymore. And then we just have a list of tons of people we wish could be there and want to be there. And hopefully, again, if it happens again, then they'll be there next time. And that's why I totally understand now why, if I don't get in somewhere, I get that there's so many people, so
Yeah.
many, to everybody's so cool and talented that you want everyone to be there, but with such limited space you just gotta pick. And I think the only thing is that I definitely wanted 1 or 2 people from not from LA who I really like their stuff and I'm friendly with them and I thought they would fit in really well. And I pretty much wanted to keep it to LA based people, but that was the only thing
Mm.
other than that.
Nice. How did you reach out to your sponsor? How did you kind of like, did you just like email them? Did you have like a little pitch where you just texted them like, hey, do you want to sponsor my event?
Well, I think I did just ask him, but because his name is Sean at Athenium and he was
Mm.
already like my art dealer, I guess you would say, like he already sells my original pages. So because of that, I was like, and I'm having my art show the day before, I was like, oh, I might be throwing, or sorry, 2 days before, I was like, I might be throwing a big comic show also. 2 days later, would you be interested in sponsoring this? And he was just on board for it. So I already had that relationship with him. We didn't really reach out to anyone else because he agreed right away.
Mm. How did you get an art dealer
Um,
to rep
again,
you?
Instagram actually, because I met him online because he started his business a few years ago and he was kind of filled the void of like where do you buy indie comic artists pages? Like you can go to San Diego and see comic there's so many booths selling Marvel comics pages, DC, even big indie comic stuff, but like he kind of was the first one, and I mean maybe someone will correct me, but to really think that like there's so many cool self-published or small press or comics out there then and people love them, and but nobody's where can, like, unless I guess you can contact the artist, but he kind of filled that void. And so because of that, he liked my work. He reached out to me. We started chatting, and then um, he agreed to start selling my original pages. And it's been really great, actually. It's been, because prior to him, I didn't make my original pages pretty. Like there's like
Ah,
brush strokes on it and ink spills,
Yeah.
and I was like, no one's gonna see this. I didn't even consider selling it. I don't know. I was like, no, what's important is the finished comic. And I would tweak things, and I still tweak things digitally, but I was like, it wasn't like a priority to make the pages nice. And after talking to him, he's like, no, people love and want to put this stuff on the wall. So like that's why I spent so long on this comic that I just finished, because I made every page as close to what it's going to finally be as possible. I ended up re-lettering it digitally because I made my handwriting a font, but they're still lettered on paper because I was like, oh, the next one maybe I'll be neater. But in terms of like spills and marks and smudges, I tried to keep it as pristine as possible.
have you ever tried to sell a smudged up page? Because
Yeah.
it's happened to me once that I have my penciled sketch under my ink, and like usually what I do, I pencil, I ink,
Uh-huh.
and then I erase my under sketch. And at conventions, usually on the last day I table, on the very last day I
Sure.
table, that's when I sell my originals. The first 2 days I sell only my prints and comics.
Okay.
And one day, like, somebody was like, I want this drawing, and I started raising the under sketch, and they were like, no. And they were like, you're destroying the art. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool. So that's why I was asking. I was wondering if people, I feel like sometimes people give more value to those
Yeah,
smudged up
I
stuff.
don't erase anymore at all because I draw in blue pencil and I just turn the blue layer off in Photoshop. So the
Mm-hmm.
pencil goes away, but and when someone wants to buy it, I don't erase the pencil either because of what you just said, because when I mean, you know this, right? But when you start erasing, the ink starts to fade, and I don't want to really go
Yeah.
back in and like re-ink the inks already. So it's like, no, I'll leave the blue line art. And honestly, over time, the blue line art underneath kind of fades away and the ink just becomes prominent. So it's not really a big deal. I mean, if someone really wants to preserve it, they'll probably frame it. But yeah, I have just sold through Sean on his website one or two pages that have some smudges, and it has not seemed to be an issue. But I'd still prefer to, going forward, keep it as clean as possible.
Oh, wow. What kind of stuff do you sell when you're like at San Diego Comic Con? I've always wondered, because you said that was like a weird kind of show, but you do make your money back. I'm always kind of like, I've never tabled there. For the first time in my life, I've been this year, and I
Oh,
was just
okay.
like,
I didn't know
the
that was your
artist
first time.
alley. Yeah, it was my first time checking out because I don't know, it's so big. There's a million people. I'm like, seems overwhelming. Compared to like a nice little niche show like Kala or like the one you're going to be
Sure, sure.
hosting, like the
Yeah, it's I think that I shouldn't have said it's a weird show because it is a good show. It's just, again, like you
Mhm.
said, it's not like Cala. So people aren't there for the stuff they want at Cala. Although there are people there for that, it's just not the main,
Yes.
group
Hmm.
that's there. So they'll find you if they want your stuff. But I bring the same stuff I would bring anywhere else, honestly, like to any show, because it's no different. Those people are there and they'll find you. It's just, I mean, the only thing is maybe I'll have more shirts there that I won't bring to other shows. Like I'll bring one shirt to a small comic show, but here I'll bring more shirts because shirts
Mhm.
can make the make the table back pretty quickly, and people like shirts. So at a comic show, I really, you get a smaller table space, and I want to really fill that with as much art as possible. But here you have a massive table, so and you have a wall behind you. You could hang stuff up. So I might as well fill it with shirts. But other than that, yeah, it's about the same. And it is overwhelming, like you said, with a lot of people. But I personally like that. I like when it's super crowded. It's comforting.
Ah, that's very funny.
It's like listening to white noise at night.
Yeah, maybe because I went to I've been going to Comic Cons since I was a little kid, like on the East Coast, because my dad really likes comics and he owned a comic book store, but
Oh,
it
wow.
closed when I was really even too young to remember, but he's been into that stuff. So he was taking me to comic shows in Manhattan as long as I can remember. And then when New York Comic Con started in 2005, I went to that one and went to every single one till I moved to LA. So I've just been around massive crowds at Comic Cons for a while. I just never tabled at it till San Diego here. I mean, one that big till San Diego. So I don't mind the crowds, but yeah, about the stuff to bring, I would say it's the same.
That is so, yeah, that's so interesting. I like to ask because I feel like, I don't know, depending like where you table, what conventions you go to, you might like bring different type of stuff to sell depending on the crowd or whatever. But it's cool to hear that you just kind of like bring your usual stuff and it does that well.
Yes, I mean every year is different, every show is different, but yeah, I just bring the same stuff because I guess I never really make anything new specifically, except I might make something and then save it thinking this might do better at this show, but I don't think I would make something in particular for a show, if that makes sense. Like I had
Yeah.
these little 3D printed action figures of one of my characters made. And I don't think I would bring them. I mean, maybe I will, but I thought that they would do best at Comic Con because it's such a big toy crowd overlap where, a place like a smaller indie comic show might not do as well because people aren't there to buy toys. So there are
Yeah.
things to consider like that.
Very cool. Let's see. We could go into some questions from our listeners.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I think we kind of went over this question from our patron, Puzzle Glum. How did you end up making comics for anthologies and magazines? But I do want to kind of go over, have you been part of anthologies? And if yes, like, have you like applied to them, or is it just like with a bunch of friends who decided to make a thing?
Yeah, no, I have been a part of a bunch of anthologies, and similarly to what I was saying about band flyers before, that like depending on what you consider important and what you want to be in, people make these anthologies unless it's for a major publisher. They do it because they love it. They like making stuff. You're not doing
Right.
it for money. And if you want to be a part of it, that's on you. And that's kind of how I've always been. If you can afford it and you want to just contribute, then that's what I do. So most anthologies are either unpaid or they'll give you contributor copies that you go sell at a show, which I think is great.
Yeah.
I think that's a good option. And that's been fine, honestly. And that's how it's been. Like I've almost, I would say, you know what, I guess I've been reached out to a few times, but I would say that I reach out to ones that I love reading. I'm like, oh, I love this anthology. I would love to do something for it. And they send you copies and you can sell it. That's been almost always the case. So yeah, Rust Belt Review is a really good one. Sean Knickerbocker, and I've been in 2 of those. And I asked in Desert Island in Brooklyn, did a Coney Island themed smoke signal newspaper that I asked, I submitted to that one. And, there's Zine Panic, that is French comic anthology, and that was cool to be a part of. So yeah, most of these I've either reached out to or the few that I've been asked to do. There was one for Birdcage Bottom Books that I did about aging punks, which was fun. And again, most places are, like I said, they'll send you copies and then you can go and sell them. So you're not really doing anything for free, but then you got to make sure you do sell them, of course. But it's been great. Like I just like being a part of it.
It's another book for your table.
Exactly.
I mean, it's
yeah.
and you didn't even have to do all the work for the whole book, and that's cool.
Yeah. So that's really how to go about it. Just kind of my philosophy at the end of the day. Like if there's something cool and fun and you want to be a part of, then just reach out to them and do it. And because it's I wouldn't wait around for someone to reach out to you because that happens few and far between. But so many more opportunities come from you reaching out. So if there's something you like and you're inspired by, like an anthology, then just reach out to them, and usually though it'll work out.
That's such great advice, and that's so true. I feel like we all get kind of like caught up in the like when I get good enough, they'll reach out to me, they'll notice me, and it's not how it works.
No, I feel like all my favorite gigs ever, no matter what it is, have come from me reaching out to someone, and that ends up leading somewhere. Hopefully, here's another story that maybe will be helpful to, I don't know, a listener or someone. Like I did a design for Amoeba here in LA for Record Store Day. And that was for free, but that's because I emailed them and was like, no, I really want to do that. I think it'd be cool to like do a design for a shirt.
Yeah.
And I did that. And after that, that led to them giving me the opportunity to do shirts for the Academy Museum collaboration with Amoeba, which wasn't a free job. It was a paid job. And that's only because I reached out because I wanted to do something cool. And that's almost a story for any job I've got where it's like, I think it's cool. I'm going to reach out about it, and it hopefully will lead somewhere. And usually it does, you know?
That's cool. And that's
Yeah.
also very forward, and some people would probably call that brave. But I think it's probably just a sign of social skills and a comfortability with doing something that's a little bit uncomfortable. But I think that in the modern day, I think young people have harder and harder time reaching out to other people and kind of getting out of their comfort zone.
Well, it is uncomfortable. Like I'm not comfortable with it. I just do it anyway, because at the end of the day, like not getting a response is still kind of, oh, that's a bummer. Like they didn't respond. Like, for every like 3 emails that say, oh, that sounds great, there's like 50 that no one responded. So like it's still uncomfortable, but
Sure.
you got to do it. Otherwise, you can't sit and wait around.
I love that you gave that ratio. I think that's really, really, really important, because I do feel like when you go in these jobs, when you go into maybe animation or comics, you have to expect that like ratio of like you said, like there's like for 30%, there's like 70% that didn't like reply. Like so I think it's good to keep that, like for anybody to keep that in mind, is like no matter how good you are, or maybe eventually you like, I don't know, you get big, you got a ton of followers, and then it's easier to get in like a festival or whatever. But before you get to that number, it's okay people don't reply to you, because that's just how it is, and it's not a big deal, and it's just like, and it's like expecting the ghosting is a little bit like, all right, it's just part of how it goes.
100%.
If you were to give someone advice about how to reach out to someone for whatever, a collaboration, to host a comic, to make a festival or whatever, what kind of advice would you think it would have in common with asking someone out on a first date?
I would have never made that connection. I feel like it's so different because hopefully, I mean, things are different now. You ask someone on a first date in person, but all these are just cold emails that are very like, you know what I mean? They're very like...
You walk up with a flyer. And you're like, here's something for free.
Right. Like, and these are very much like you're promoting yourself. Like, here's what I can do, and I'd love to work with you. But like on a first date, I guess you don't want to come off like talking about yourself, like that. But that's what you kind of have to do when you're trying to get a gig. So that's why I see a difference there. But I guess at the end of the day, it still just comes down to, I guess, being confident, right? Because and being okay with having a negative response, because you just move on, right? Like if your favorite band that you love, and that's happened to me, like they don't respond, maybe they saw it, you send them another one. All right, it's kind of like getting rejected, right? It's like, okay, you just got to move on.
If Green Day was across from you at the bar, and they didn't have a drink in front of them, the music, it's in between songs, so the music isn't too loud.
Yes,
this is your shot. How would you approach them?
That is
to do their flyer.
Oh man, I don't know, because like when it's someone I really admire, it's like really hard. I really don't know.
Yeah, butterflies in your stomach. I know.
I would just go up and just I don't know. I have done that before to bands that I really liked, and I think
do you have like Tic Tacs or anything? Do you make sure that your breath is good?
Oh yeah, definitely. That's
okay.
Sure.
That's good.
Yeah. That I feel like that's for anything in life. I would.
Yeah.
But yes, for sure. That I guess, man, I probably would mess something up anyway, but I would be prepared.
Then I think that's charming though, because you're human,
Yeah,
it could be. It could be maybe like a down to earth collaborator on a flyer.
But at the end of the day, as much as I prepare, I'm gonna mess up anyway. So I'm gonna reveal being human regardless.
Oh, what about this? What about this? Check this out. You spill a bunch of stuff on your shirt, and then you turn your shirt
Hmm.
upside down, and it's an upside down portrait of one of them that you made in Spill. And you're like, and they're like, you're amazing at drawing.
I mean, if they didn't use that as their album cover on the spot, then what am I doing there?
And then you just give them your shirt.
Oh yeah, I would definitely do that.
That is so funny.
But
What
even
if they
before
just
the
take a
first date, you're
picture?
taking off your shirt. Okay, all right.
If
They
it's
just
all
take a
right.
picture of the shirt and they don't even have to pay money because they own the rights to the
No,
picture.
you gotta watermark it. You have to pour water on yourself.
You put a TM with the
oh,
spilled
like a
drink.
true watermark.
Yeah. No,
Oh,
no.
that's actually
Bad
pretty
joke.
funny.
Bad joke. All of this has been a bad joke, but
No, but that's pretty funny that you bring that up, the Sean, like the whole like thing about like talking to like the band at the concert and stuff, because I feel like a very long time I was like very, very shy and I didn't want to like go up to like artists or whatever and like talk to them. But one day I was actually at a show with Jeremy Polgar. We both Jeremy Polgar 176. We were at a show, we were watching Tobacco, and he was like, he's right there, go talk to him. I was like, no. He's like, go talk to him. And it was really nice. And then I was just like, I love your music, it means a lot to me, and blah blah
I
blah.
can say definitively, after you get done playing a show, there is nothing that I like more than someone coming up to me and telling me I played guitar cute or whatever it is they're gonna say. After I'm done playing, I want people to come up, tell me I did a good job. I want people to be nice to me.
Oh, so you play?
And yeah. No, I'm in a metal band.
Oh,
but
now the Korn connection makes sense.
but there's like I think that both at a like if you're tabling, if you're after you get done playing a show, even though I'm like too sweaty, I don't want anybody to touch me or perceive me.
Yeah.
Like if you can close your eyes and come up to me and like just tell me that you thought that it was cool what I did, makes my night.
But that there is a difference between like if someone I don't know, I think that is true, and I would have no problem doing that. But it is harder to then how do you transition from complimenting to like, by the way, I'm an artist and I would love to do, you know what I mean? Like that's trickier because you don't want to.
I think
Okay.
you have to wait until they're
Sean, that's
done
the question
breaking
for
down.
you.
You have to wait until they're done breaking down the gear,
Yes.
and that they're not doing anything.
Yes.
And if they're like hanging out and they're just chilling after the show and they're not in the middle, they're not clearly in the middle of something and stressed out, that's the time to talk to them. What were you going to ask me, V?
How do you imagine the perfect scenario of someone coming up to you after a show and telling you they want to do a flyer? What would be the scenario where you're like, yeah, I want that person to do a flyer for me?
Throw your zine into my guitar case before I close it,
And
then I'll find it later. Yeah.
Sneak it in.
That is so funny. That is so funny. Wow.
I mean, genuinely, I think that would be kind of interesting. I think that it's hard in any situation. It's hard to go up to someone and like pull out your phone and try to show them stuff. And it's dimly lit in these places, and it's going to be hard to show them a physical thing. I mean, I don't think that there's anything wrong with going up to someone and giving them like one of those like little tiny zines or a business card or something like that. I also think that maybe a better option is to try to have a genuine conversation with them that lasts a few minutes, and then afterwards contact them on social media and be like, hey, it was awesome seeing you guys play. I loved our talk about blah, 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 blah. I just wanted to see if you guys ever need anyone to design a flyer or whatever. If not, totally cool.
Yeah.
But I really like you guys' stuff, and I'd love to like collaborate with you.
Yeah, that's
Something
exactly
like
what I've done.
Damn. Wow. Nailed it. Sean, you nailed it. That's how you get to draw a flyer for Sam.
Draw a flyer for me. Draw a flyer for my flyer making company.
yeah, you come up to me and after I played with my band and you talked me into making a flyer for you. That's real convincing. That's real salesmanship.
That is so funny. We have from Newgrounds, Belly Aves Fox asks, do you consider webcomics to be a valuable an untapped source for animated shows?
I feel like sadly not the person to answer that question because I haven't read any webcomics really. So I don't
Really?
know. Yeah, no, I've always been just like going to the store and buying things. So like there's nothing like I have nothing against webcomics. I just never have, similar to my manga thing. It's just sometimes it's just like things just, you know, slide by me or whatever
Well,
and
what
it's like,
about
oh,
indie comics? What if we
Yeah.
reframe it and we say
I don't know.
like,
I mean, I don't know because I don't, ironic. I know it sounds weird because I said from the very beginning I did and I've always wanted to show, but I don't make comics for that, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like my comics are my comics. What I want to be a show is not my comic. That's something different that I'm not. So it's like I'm
Mm,
strange in that regard. So that's why I said I might not be the one to answer that because I'm not. I don't know. It's like my comics, in my mind, can only exist as a comic, and I want it to read like a comic. And the ideas I have for shows, I'm not making into comics. So I don't know. I mean, like, I think
yeah,
if you're gonna make a comic or web comic, don't do it for that reason. I don't. It can happen, but then the comic might not be great because you're thinking about it less about making a good comic and more about a property. Maybe I don't know. I guess maybe someone can pull it off, but it's just not how I work, at least.
yeah. What about
hmm.
you as a comic aficionado? Like you love to buy the comics, you love
Uh-huh.
to read them.
Yeah.
Are there any indie comics that you bought at a shop, like tiny
Mm-hmm.
little comics that you're like, oh, that would be an awesome show?
Yeah, no, there are. That's true. There have been many that, or you know what? It's been more like I read something and I feel like, oh man, like if I have a show one day, like this person's so funny, like I would hire them to do blank, blank, or blank. You know, it's like that kind of thing. Like I'm sure that
Mm-hmm.
I've read things and felt like this would be a great show, but to be honest, most of the comics that I like, and this is just a personal taste thing, like I'm not into big, like high concept action adventure or
Mm-hmm.
goofy, like this would adapt great. I'm reading more like show me your diary that you don't want anyone to read. And I love reading these like personal autobiographical or like,
Hmm.
really, like the stuff that I'm reading feels like it's made to be a comic. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like it's a show. Like, whether it's something like, Joe Matt's comics, he just passed away. He's like I don't know, one of the godfathers of inappropriate autobiographical comics, or something like Blankets, Craig Thompson. Like those aren't like
Mm,
show, like those, I mean, could they be? I guess, but like I like the personal connection, like private, I'm reading your diary type thing instead of. So the other, like Bone, I love Bone. That could be a show. Yeah, so there are
yeah.
stuff that I have read that certainly could be. Or I guess a great example, and I'm looking at this Bobby the homicidal maniac right now. Like someone read his comics and was like, you should have a show. So that does exist, but I think at the end of the day, like if someone's gonna read something and be like, this should be a show, they probably didn't intend for it to be that way.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer to the question. I do feel like comics are usually kind of like a great jumping off point. I feel like, I mean, I do understand where this person is coming from because there are like web comics like Nimona that eventually got
Oh yeah, yeah,
adapted
that's right.
into a feature, and I think there are others that I am
There
blanking on
certainly
right
are. I can't
now.
think of any either, but there definitely have been.
But I would say for Nimona, like that had to go through. I just wanted to break the myth a little bit that it's not like an executive scrolling on Tumblr one day and being like, that would make a good show. No, there
Yeah,
was like a whole machine behind it. First it got published and then the literary agent
sure.
helped get
Hmm.
like that pitch in front of execs and everything. So just wanted to put it out there for anyone who's like, if I make a great web comic, it's gonna get adapted into a show.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like for adapting things into shows, I think it really depends on like if it's the sort of comic that has like a long overarching story. I think anything else like comics that have shorter little bits or shorter runs or like one-off jokes for everyone, I feel like it's harder to like you're going to have to do a lot of writing and reimagining to make it
Mm.
into like conceivably a show, but I feel like something like like the comic Chew
Oh
or
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
something.
remember that.
Like I could imagine that as a detective show, like,
Well,
and that's a longer,
it's funny you mention that because that comic came out when I was a sophomore in college, and I remember my professor, who was a Marvel guy, a big Marvel guy, he was like, "Yeah, that just got optioned, and nothing ever happened from it." But I remember
yeah.
like in class being like, "Wait, that's a thing that happens? Like people can option your comic?" And like that. But then he went on, I'm pretty sure he did. I don't think I'm making this up, to be like, "Yeah, but that shouldn't be the reason why you're making it. Like you can get
No, for
lucky with
sure.
that,
Yeah.
but I think,
Yeah.
you can get excited with that stuff. Just don't lose your way."
And also, if you
Yeah.
really think about it, Scott Pilgrim technically could
Sure.
Oh
potentially
yeah,
fall
yeah,
under indie comics,
sure.
but until it got an animated show, what's interesting is it got a movie, a live action
Yes.
movie, before it even got an animated show.
Yeah. It's a great movie
So
though.
it is a great
Yeah.
movie, and I think the movie might have really helped put the comic on the map, like, again. Like, the comic was already on the map, but,
Yeah,
like, I
I
think
never
the
heard of the
movie.
comic till the movie, actually.
Really? Okay,
Yeah,
that's interesting.
I know.
That's
It's
really
Yeah.
that's
I,
crazy.
I I think that the pipeline from manga into TV, I think, is interesting because a lot of manga follows a very particular format of
Mhm.
storytelling that is also sort of mirrored in TV versus like when we think about comics or indie or TV. I feel like the storytelling formats are very different
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Hmm.
I feel like it's almost like like manga is set up to potentially be a TV show versus most a lot
Yeah,
of, at least
I
in my
agree.
opinion, a lot of indie comics in the US are
Well,
or
I think
maybe not.
it all stems from the way it's published. Like, manga, like, the schedule is insane. It's like every week you gotta, like, come out like 20 pages. Like, god damn. Like,
That is a lot.
like, what would you say? I mean, I know you said your last comic, it took you 4 years to kind of get it all together. What's
Yeah.
a good amount of pages that you like to, like, when you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna do a new comic, I'm gonna put it out, I'm gonna, like, sell it at shows and
Uh-huh.
everything. What is a good amount of pages for you to reach? Like,
Hmm.
are you kind of more of like the 22s? Are you kind of more in like to more of like a chunkier, like maybe like 50 pages? What's your
Uh, I don't,
sweet
I
spot?
think that for me, I this has not been intentional, but both of my comics prior to this one have been around 40, 45 pages, just how long it took to
Mm.
tell this story. And I think that's because
Mhm.
I have two little stories so they're each at, let's say, 20 pages. And 20 pages is, like you said, 22 is, I think, the standard or something like that. So I think having two makes sense if it was 40. This
Mhm.
one, though, ended up being 84. That's
Whoa.
why it took so long,
Whoa,
and that's
that's a
just
long time.
because
Yeah.
it just kept growing. I just To get it to the place I wanted it to be, that's where it had to be, even though I didn't plan for it to be. And it's all part of the same series, so like that's why I think there's no right answer. I think however long your story needs to be, that's how long it should be. And I
Yeah.
think that you shouldn't really, someone shouldn't really worry about that because they're not. This is if you're making your own. Obviously, if you're working for like an actual publisher, I think they have to be a certain amount of pages. But if it's your own,
Yeah.
that's the great thing about it. There's no executive, no one's telling you to do anything, so
Mhm.
you can show it to someone for thoughts, but like you can make it as many pages as you want to complete the story.
When your comic is developed into a live action movie, who's gonna play? Who would you have play your main character?
That's funny. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. Oh man. I
Dude,
don't
I'm
know.
so
You know
glad.
what? I don't know because my characters, my comic takes place in high school, and I don't know any like teenage actors.
Dude, I'm so glad you say that because, like, I get that question all the time on my webcomic, and, like, I love everybody who takes the time to comment, but I really hate that question because I'm
No,
like,
I
that's
know,
not how I think
I'm
it.
I'm
You know,
intentionally asking like the stupidest question that I could ask you.
That's
It-
But
funny.
no.
it's like so hard. It's like, well, now you're asking me to cast my characters. I have not thought about them like this. I don't like muddle them after actors. It's so funny. I was gonna ask you, so because from like a comics making perspective, like so personally, there's a couple of things that I take into account when I make comics because like it costs so much money to print. For like obviously you print in black and white,
Uh-huh.
so that's something that's already like figured out
Sure.
because you draw black and white. But going from 40 pages,
Yeah.
technically you can still staple it and you can still like save a lot of money by
Mm.
having your book a stapled booklet. This is something that I think about when I
Yeah,
print my webcomic because I'm like, it has to be under 64 pages or else like there's too many pages and the staples aren't like big
Yeah.
enough.
No,
So
I haven't stapled my own in a long time. I always get it printed professionally. I use a place called Mixim, which is really good.
that's the one I used to.
Oh,
Oh my
okay. There
God.
you go.
And so you're going with them for your stapled and perfect binding? Because I'm
Yeah.
guessing,
Yeah.
wait, are you 40 pages also perfect binding?
No, the 40 ones are stapled.
Yeah. Did you see that little price jump when you had to print the 80 pages or
Oh, it
was
was a
it?
massive difference. It's a
Yeah.
huge price jump because I printed more than I've ever printed, and I wanted a really nice cover, and this one was like wildly expensive, but I it was like, you know what, it was worth it. I spent 4 years making it. I wanted to feel nice, you know?
Yeah. Dude, I feel that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask because okay, when I went to LA Comic Con,
Yeah.
have you been to LA Comic
Uh-huh.
Con?
I haven't tabled there, but I go every year to just walk around.
Dude, I keep kind of going back and forth on like tabling there or
Oh,
not.
I'm
I'm
sorry.
like,
Wait, I did table there one year. It's when I moved here. I'm sure it wasn't great when I tabled there, but that was like 10 years ago, so it's could be way different now.
I mean, I ask everybody I know if they've tabled there, and everybody tells me it's terrible to table there. So it hasn't changed in 10 years.
so we're no longer looking for a sponsorship from them. We've unilaterally decided that we don't want a sponsorship from them. If you're listening, we refuse, even if you want to give us one.
No, it would be amazing if they did. I would love to table there one day, but I'm just saying. If you're an artist,
They're just gonna clip this piece of the podcast and send it back to you when you
that would be so
the
funny.
table.
Clem, do we cut this or not? It's your
No,
executive decision.
I'm just joking. It's fine. They're not gonna.
It's
They don't.
it's really funny. It would be really funny if they went through the trouble of like listening to 200 episodes to find just this clip.
That's funny.
I saw a dude there that was like he had his comics printed on newspaper type of paper, and I was like, that is so cool. And he was like kind of sort of guarded about where he was printing them. I think it was like a deal of like he probably went to the printing shop or whatever, and I was like, damn, that is cool. Like the little like secret, you know, and like
Oh,
the
yeah,
comics
yeah.
are because then what's cool is that like when you have these very specific printing places that you have like a deal with, and then you can like have things look a very specific way.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow,
100%.
that's
Your
the
friend
one.
let you in the back door and use the printing stuff or something.
Yeah, right. I don't know. There was something, I don't know. I'm always trying to figure out where people print their stuff, but it's like now everybody's printing at Mixam.
They
I
are.
print at Mixam as well. And it's like there is a little bit of that like that uniform look.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe maybe he got it printed at a place that uses like child labor or something
Oh my
overseas, and
God.
it's a whole
Stop.
scandal or something. You know, it's little kids pressing the all the little pages on newspaper, and their little fingers are covered in ink, and
I mean,
they're getting ink poison.
I'm not saying this is what they do, of course, because you're kidding, but I did have people leave cards at my table at San Diego being like, use us. We're a printing house in China. We're much cheaper. And I was like, oh, okay. I
Dude,
never
is that
looked in.
tiger printing?
No, I don't think so. It was like I don't even remember what it was called.
At Emerald City Comic Con, Tiger Printing reached out to me, and their stuff is really good quality. I was really, really impressed. I want to work with them eventually. We have more questions.
Oh,
The Shock Block from Newgrounds is asking you, do you like salami?
I actually hate it.
From Instagram, Jordo Peter asked, what is your favorite moment of working on The Simpsons?
My favorite moment. That's hard. It will have to be, there is, I think I told this before on, I've only been on one other podcast. It was about ska, but I might have told this on that, but there's an episode that is called Springfield Splendor that was all about comics. The title is referencing American Splendor, Harvey Pekar comic, and the comic was supposed to reference Ghost World, Daniel Clowes, and Fun Home and such. And I was not an artist on the show, and because everyone on the show knew that I make comics, they were like, Marge and Lisa create a comic in the episode, and they didn't know what Marge's style should look like. Like, it's a cartoon already. What's her comic style gonna look like? So they were nice enough to be like, Sam makes comics. It should be his style. So that episode, I got really lucky, and it was really nice of everyone there that episode is when they go into the comic book world in that episode. I pretty much got to draw the Simpsons however I wanted, and yeah, that was really cool and
So
exciting.
sick.
Thanks. Yeah, it was really fun. And then only because I happened to be paired on that episode by chance, and the storyboard supervisor is a big comics fan, and he's really nice, and he liked my stuff and was just like, yeah, it looks really cool and funky and weird, and let's make that, and then everyone approved it or whatever. And yeah, so that's probably my favorite.
Damn, that's sick.
Thanks. Yeah, it's season 27.
That is so fucking awesome.
Thank
Cartoon styles inside of a cartoon it's like a hidden small little, like, I love it. I love when shows do it, like when a show will make up a show that's inside the show. Like, I love that kind of shit.
Me too.
And I got to make the cartoon style for there's a show called Stone Quackers, and they're watching a TV show in the TV, and it's just like two characters bonking each other on the head with a mallet or something.
I
but
love
like
that stuff.
but they were just like, just, you can use your drawing style, and I was like, that's so sick.
Oh, similar to that. That's the same idea. That's awesome that you got to do that.
But I mean, it sounds like you got to have like the actual characters in your drawing style for a little bit in that one, right?
Yes and no. I mean, I had to still work with the director because he still did his revisions and such, because it was my first ever gig. So like, they're just basic principles of like, okay, how are we going to make that animate? You know what I mean? So like, it still evolved and changed into a hybrid between the two of us, but the first pass and everything, they like went off of what I did, which is cool. But I give him so much credit, the director, for really working with me. He's such a nice guy.
That really is fun. So cool. That is the best kind of like, yeah, that's definitely the best moment of working on any show.
That's some cartoon magic. That's some collaboration. I love it.
Thanks. Yeah.
On Twitter at Noah Banana Wow asks, what do you find to be the most boring thing to draw?
This is probably the answer. Maybe you're all expecting, but cars. I hate drawing cars, and I know a lot of people that love drawing cars, and I watch them do it, and they're just so amazing. So I don't know. For me, I am just not a car drawing person. And I gave myself a panel in this comic in a mall parking lot where it's like 100 cars. And I was no, like, don't be afraid. Like, just do it. I have to do it.
The parking lot is empty. No one's at the mall. No one's there. It's okay.
That is so funny.
But I don't like drawing them.
That is so funny because, I don't know. I feel like I mean, I guess it kind of goes with your style of like having things being like very detailed and intricate, but like I am so lazy when I do comics. I'm like, I'll just try to do, I guess I kind of take that from manga where it's just like they do a lot of like panels with like empty backgrounds.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is so smart. Why don't I do that? Like this.
Well, you know what's funny is that like it's smart for time, obviously, like especially if comics don't pay a lot. So it's like in that regard smart. But for my own stuff, it's like I love reading comics where I feel like I'm in it, like in an environment and I could live in there. So that's why I like creating detailed backgrounds. It's so time consuming, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just what I like doing. But if I was getting paid for like a comic job, I would go that route because like there's just no time for it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why you can take 4 years and draw a background in every panel. But I get it. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, and not every panel needs a background. Like what you said, I'm sure that's sometimes not just for economical reasons, but like, sometimes you want the character soloed out and it just fits, it feels right. It's like, I don't need a background here. I want the page to breathe on this panel, which is also
Yeah,
necessary.
that's really cool.
I wanted to ask you just real quick. It doesn't have to be a super long answer, but I was curious about what your relationship with writing story is, and how you write. Because when you make comics, you're also writing and sometimes writing dialogue, I'm sure. So how do you approach that? How do you plan that?
Um, yeah, I don't, it's funny. So in school, because I went, was for cartooning, they do give you like, here's the script, like you write for a comic, panel one, panel two. I mean, again, I would have to go by that if I was working for a company, but for my own comics, I don't really need to do that. So the way I write is just a Word document where I'm just writing the story and it's not any particular format whatsoever. It's like
Cool.
I'll just write like character character character. It's like just dialogue. And
Yeah.
I look at
Mm.
that and the thumbnails and I thumbnail out the whole thing. And I know like the action panels or anything will be just in the thumbnail. So I'll just refer to my dialogue script. And then from there, all I need is a script sitting next to the thumbnails. And then I go to the page. So that's the way I do it
Awesome.
just because it's easier for
And I
me.
think that's one of the. First of all, I think that's really cool for people to hear, because a lot of people who are just starting to do it are like, I have to like do it the perfect, most polished, good way, or else I'm doing it wrong. And like,
Sure, sure.
I mean, just do it in a way that you like, and in a way that you can upkeep and is fun for you. And I mean, it's nice to learn official ways or whatever, but that's cool that you do it in that kind of informal way.
Hmm. I do feel like it's cool that like I do like that in comics you can just write it however you want. I feel like I don't know how you feel about your writing, but I guess if you write mostly dialogue, that's the words that end up on the page anyway. But for me, writing prose, it's like it's excruciating. Like I hate the way I write prose. Like I don't know. They
What do
open
you
the
mean
door,
exactly?
like oh, the character opens the door and
Oh,
reveals an empty kitchen. And I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like,
I mean,
oh, this is like that has no style, no flair,
sure.
no nothing. You know what I mean?
I mean yeah, it's like if you're writing it to give to an artist, it makes sense why you'd have to write that. But if it's for your own comic, I don't really feel like I need to write that because I know what I'm gonna draw and I'm gonna draw it in the thumbnail. So I don't really need to write anything out like that, you know?
Yeah, it's so funny because writing can be tough. I don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Whenever,
I've never sat down and written like a script, you
Yeah.
know?
yeah.
What do you do when no ideas are coming to you? Like, so maybe do you have a different way of approaching it when you're on a job and you're being paid for it versus for your own stuff? Like, what do you do when you get creative block?
Um, for my own stuff, I never do, but I will if it's like a gig. You know what I mean? If it's like here's a band flyer, like I want you to do a band flyer for me, and when they say you can do whatever you want, that's
Yeah.
actually harder. Like
Oh
I
my
like when
god,
there's
yeah.
one concept. So I don't know for that. You know what I do? It's only for illustration, which is funny because like I just consider a band flyer an illustration. But for my comics, that's not a problem because I always have a story I want to tell. But anyway, for that, what I do is I have a folder on my desktop of just art reference, and then on Instagram the saved tab, and I'll just go through every single image, like hundreds, and I'll drag the ones that speak to me. Even though I've seen these images hundreds of times,
Hmm.
I have like a set amount. I guess it's always growing I add new things to it. But anyway, I'll just drag the specific images that inspire me to my desktop, put it in a folder, and I'll look at that. And from there, I'll come up with something. And that's pretty much my process every time for coming up with like an illustration. And I think for a comic, I'm trying to think if I. No, you know what? Yeah, for a comic, it has not been an issue. Usually there's always some story I want to tell. It's harder for me to come up with just like a random illustration or drawing.
Dude, that is so cool. Like what you described with your folder. I do miss, I don't know. I was just talking about that the other day. Like I was just like, I miss those websites like Fubies or like Boom or like these kind of like that were curating like a bunch of like really cool images.
Yeah.
You know, and then
Yeah,
that was like
yeah.
so inspiring. You could just like go there and get inspired every day and just like save images that you thought were really cool. That helped
I
me in the
know.
past writing comics too.
I
Are you
feel
not a
like I
Pinterest
used to do
person?
that. Oh, sorry. What?
No, I was just asking if you guys aren't Pinterest people.
Oh, you
No,
know what? It should be, but I'm not. I always forget about it, but I really should
I heard,
because there's good stuff there.
yeah, I heard that Pinterest got overwritten with AI art though. So that's
Oh gosh.
yeah, that's the only sad thing. But I have heard from somebody on YouTube, not directly from them, I just watched their video. They were like, posting your art on Pinterest has a better longevity than any other platform because people browse it more. I don't know.
Huh.
That's just something I heard.
And they can just accidentally come across it and
Yeah, if you like tag it correctly or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I should still check it out anyway because I just forget about that source, and I'm sure there's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Are you a punk? Because I'm asking that because you write a lot of like autobio comics. They're like with like the scene, the punk scene, the ska scene.
I don't know. I don't think
are you a
so.
punker?
Are you a punker?
I mean, I listen to way more ska music than punk, so I don't know what that says.
How many skanks around the circle have you done as your record?
Probably enough to circle the earth.
Oh damn, that's a lot. I think you're mixing
Wow.
up the statistic about how if you stretch out all of your intestine for the whole
Oh
length
yeah,
or whatever, which also I feel
right.
like it's incorrect. I feel like
Like the
there's no way
stadium,
that's true.
the
No.
football
But I
stadium.
remember when I was younger, people used to say, "Did you know that if you took all of your intestine and stretched it out end to end, it would circle the Earth?" It's
No,
like
that
there's
is
no fucking
not
possible
true.
way. There's
That
no
is
fucking possible way.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah.
true at
That's
all.
just a
comment.
false fact.
Everybody in the comments, tell us what you think if you took out your intestine and like what length that would be. And if
Hmm.
you think it's the goes around the earth. That's what you have to comment. I think so. What do you want to plug, Sam?
I would want to plug, I guess, three things. One would be the Silverlight Comic Show on September 7th at El Cid in LA, sponsored by Silver Lake Shorts. If you've ever been to Silver Lake Shorts, then you'll love this. Same people organizing it. This time it's about comics. It's going to be really fun. It's going to be later in the day, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. And there'll be 26 artists and selling their comics and stuff, and then a comics reading at night from 7:30 to 9, I think, and that will be really great. Outdoors there, you can get Mexican food there. 2 days before that show is my art show in Burbank at the Animation Guild, which is from 5 p.m. to 8, and it will be original comic art on the walls, around 88 pages of my new comic, which is the last thing I guess I'll plug, which is Scumburbia Mega Size Mall Issue, which is an 84, 88 page comic that's a standalone story inspired by my time growing up in New Jersey, hanging out at the mall. And it is in stores now all around LA and across the country and on my website.
Hell yeah. So fucking awesome.
Looks like the demon is at my art show now.
I
If you don't want to get haunted by a demon, don't go to this
Yeah.
art show.
Exactly.
That is so funny. Wait, let me just kind of like uncheck these layers.
No, it's okay.
Oh.
I did it. I was just bringing it up for a little bit, just for the while you were talking about it.
Well, with that is the end of this creative block. Sam, thanks for being our guest and sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me here. It was really fun, and I really had a great time.
It was a pleasure getting to know you. I also want to give a little shout out. Thank you to our listeners. Follow us on social media at CRTV Block, where we ask for drawing prompts, and questions for our guests. Sorry, it's been a long day. It's so hot. Huge thanks to our editor Clemens for editing the podcast, Marco for helping us produce the show, and Ibuka for creating the short clips we've been putting out.
If you love our show, then support us on Patreon. Becoming a patron gets you early access to interviews and access to our Discord community. A great way you can also support us is to please subscribe to the Spotify podcast, the YouTube channel, and all of our social medias. Please interact with our content, like, comment, share our posts. Getting more eyes and ears on the podcast will just kind of get the algorithm to play in our favor, and that will help us, get more money from the ads and keep the podcast running for as long as we can. Click the link in the description of this episode to check Sam's website and shop, and also to find our Patreon. I've been your host, V.
And I was Sean. Keep going up to lonely bands at bars and asking them if you can do poster art for them. Keep being creative, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.